live. It's
a good thing I come prepared. I didn't realize we were going live 1 second into.
It's not 1 second.
Oh
back. My God, it is. It is 1 second. Like
I told you,
I beat the clock there. If this were an action movie, I like cut the wire on the bomb.
Have you seen the recent Mission Impossible? Now I've only ever seen one.
Don't spoil it.
Other Mission Impossible. I'm not going to spoil anything.
Okay. Right? No, let's talk about this. Let's fucking talk about this for a minute. Hutch, have you seen the new Mission Impossible movie?
Negative.
Connor, have you seen the new Mission Impossible
Someone
movie?
says echo. Someone says echo.
Oh, sorry. Is it me? Should I mute myself?
Is it me?
I don't know.
I hear
I think it might be you.
Come on, Josiah. Jesus Christ.
Why?
I just muted myself to test if it was me. I normally have pretty good noise cancellation.
All right.
I'll mute myself.
I don't hear an echo.
I'm good.
I think it's fake news. It's fake news.
Fake news.
Christian Valeris, you're just screwing with chat. So hold on. No, I have not seen the new Mission Impossible. However, I did see probably 3 or 4 ago, and it was phenomenal. I loved it. Like all the stunts seemed like really practical. All the violence was really good. The dude's like 60 and he's sprinting off of buildings and kicking people in the face.
You love violence because you're a cop, ex-cop, and
that's right.
You basically want to bomb Iran. So explain that.
God damn. Well, can we just wait a minute? Can we have some foreplay here? Like you just like fucking ram it in. Jesus. All right. So let's
Connor and I.
Yeah, let's like fucking ease into this. Let's light some candles. Let's set the mood. Put some music on.
Yeah. The only thing I love more than violence is righteous violence.
All right. So listen, welcome to another episode of Live and Learn. This is not an intro that we typically do, but I'm trying it out. We've got, of course, my typical co-host here. We got Hutch. We got Econoboy. We got Pisco. And we got this other asshole named Counterpoints, a.k.a. Connor. He's going to shout out his socials here in a minute. A couple of things you should know about Connor right out the gate. He is not just a Burkean conservative and a Republican. He's also an avid pop culture geek. He's got a Warhammer 40K channel, which you should definitely check out. And he's a brave Warhammer 40K fan because he is the first one that I've known who will publicly concede that His Imperial Majesty Emperor Sheev Palpatine of Star Wars would totally fucking curb stomp the so-called God Emperor of Mankind, the fucking, most overrated couch potato ever.
Man, this was actually a struggle for me, because I started live streaming full time, 9:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. And I have an oiler, but he's too kind to the stream. So I'm like, man, Josiah, he could be oiling. He could be a good oiler. And he was like, you know what, Connor? I'll give you $1 billion if you say that Sheev Palpatine is better than the Emperor of Mankind. And I refused. My principles refused to allow me to make that concession. So despite the lucrative bribery that was on the table, I wasn't able to do it.
Does the Emperor of Mankind have a name?
Dominates Sheev Palpatine every day of the week.
Does he have a name?
Sheev Palpatine is a fucking snack.
Sheev's bitch is his name. That's
Sheev is a bitch is his name.
Stop it. No, but in all seriousness, does he have like an actual name in the lore?
What, the Emperor?
Yeah.
Bob.
Nobody knows it except for a couple of friends.
Okay.
Robert.
Right. Well, that's really what we're here to talk about is Warhammer 40K. But no, obviously we got a lot to talk about with respect to Trump's politicization of the military, potential hot war with Iran. But first, Connor, anything did I leave out in your introduction?
Besides the fact that my dogs are knocking across my screen, if I could just do like a base intro.
Yeah, go ahead, man.
Yeah, my name's Connor. I'm a science fiction, political, and philosophy nerd, a Marine Corps and law enforcement veteran. I run a Warhammer YouTube channel named Counterpoints 40K. It's moderately successful. I actually have a lot of fun doing that. I'm going to be launching Counterpoint Sci-Fi and Counterpoint Star Wars because, believe it or not, a business entrepreneur says, I love what you do with 40K so much, I will pay your editor to stand up another 2 sci-fi channels. So that's coming down the pipe. I'm working on that post-recorded content, edited content. And then I'm also live 5 days a week, Monday through Friday. Tuesday, I'm live on Counterpoints Politics, which is kind of like my home channel. But Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I'm live on something called Valor Media Network. It's an offshoot of Midas Touch. It's first responders and military members who actually like the Republic of the United States of America and believe in the Constitution. And so it's kind of like a conglomeration channel where a whole bunch of creators post their content there.
Hey, chat was curious. Is this benefactor a guy by the name of Edward Gregorian?
Is that the tenant guy?
Yeah.
Yeah.
No. But he's invested in the military-industrial complex and petroleum, so it might be the same guy. I have no idea.
Well, congratulations, man. Hutch, Pisco, Conboy, what about you guys before we jump into it? How you all doing? What's new? What's popping?
Doing great. Still reading it's only getting better. The Public Wealth of Nations is a great book. Just
The
like
best,
the
some
Bible.
would say.
Yeah, but no, it's been a pretty good book, and just been hanging out. So this is a bright spot of my week. Right at Hump Day, doing Live and Learn every week with you guys. It's always great. Connor, I could take or leave. But obviously you three, I really appreciate.
Hutch, what about you, buddy?
I'm on
What's
a new
poppin'?
arc. I've issued a unilateral ceasefire against beefing with lefties on Twitter.
Wow.
For at least a month. That's just on Twitter. I can talk shit on stream, but I think it was like, I don't know. Did you guys go to your No King protest? I know Josiah, you went. Did Pisco and Econoboy and Connor? Did you guys
I
go?
had a family thing.
Oh, okay.
Believe it or not, wife went. So I had to watch the kids.
Mrs. Points was out there.
Mrs.
Nice.
And I was engaging in my maternal duties.
Nice. Good for you, man. That's very progressive of you.
Well,
Why didn't you take the kids? They should have some
To the
kind of
No
patriotism.
Kings?
Yeah.
It's not no kids,
Paranoia.
bro. It's no kings, not no
Yeah.
kids.
Was there going to be like
Yeah.
a trans story time? Is that why you didn't want to go?
Pisco, what the fuck?
Okay, so
Why are you doing this, man? Why?
we could still do intros, but realistically, man, I'm not gonna lie. If I see 500 people who don't know what they're doing gathered in a giant circle, to me that just looks like a target. That's what that looks like to me. So no, I don't need my kids in public surrounded by strangers.
You know who you remind me of, Connor? You remind me of who's the Arrow guy in Marvel, Hawkeye. You're like you just want to go back to your farm and like be with your family. You strike me as the everyman, although you do support like a fascist, United States empire that expands to all the Americas. So that makes you a little different.
Yep.
For those of you who do not know, Pisco and Connor are ex-lovers. There's serious sexual tension there and rage that I'm sure will come out.
We're former sparring partners. People keep accusing me of being a liberal, and then I introduce them to Pisco, and they're like, "Oh yeah, you guys are definitely two different things."
Yeah. What about you, Pisco? What's new? What's popping?
Listen.
Fuck me, right?
Oh wait, Hutch. What
Oh, Hutch. I'm sorry. No, you said.
Derailed, but it's fine.
No, fuck. You're right. You're right. You just talked about the no.
Yeah. Why?
Kings. Yeah.
Why is to tell us why you have this unilateral de-escalation?
Well, I think so. There were a couple things. So first of all, the going to the protest was like such a great antidote to Black Pill. I don't know about other cities, but in Los Angeles, there was estimated 30,000 people. Hella people brought their kids. It was really good vibes. There was
the 30,000 attended the No King just in LA?
Just in LA.
Wow.
And it was estimated to be the largest single day protest in United States history. And so there's something about that is makes you feel connected. It's a perfect antidote against the black pilling nature of online politics. And then also this week, there's just an enormous fracture that's emerging within the MAGA movement. And I think now is just not, I don't think now is not the time to, like, I'm really focused on coalition building in this moment. I think it's just a really good idea to reach out to people and not necessarily like never critique the left, but I just think right now there's a really big opportunity, I think.
And too much at stake. Yeah.
Yeah. So anyways, that's all I was going to say.
When you were at the LA No Kings protest, like, were there, because I thought I heard some, like, after the official protest ended and there was obviously some still people lingering, there were incidents in LA. So how was the actual protest itself?
Insurrections.
There was one particular building. It was a federal building and there were Marines posted there. And, everywhere else, when you went downtown near City Hall, the police officers, the beat cops, they were, there were barriers and they were like 30 feet behind the barriers, very casually, like leaned up against the wall. You could have walked up to them and made conversation. It would have been fine. Like there was no tension in that space. But when you went to this one building where the Marines were, that invited the more, like the younger crowd, the more angry crowd. And so me and IRI were posted up there for like 2.5 hours.
Whoa.
And we were fully both like things are going to pop off at some point. And then finally we were just like, okay, my feet hurt. Let's just go. And then 20 minutes later, it popped off. I guess they were throwing bricks and bottles. And, like, I got to say, I'm not surprised, like, with that, like, particular crowd. But
wait, how close were you to where would eventually have bricks thrown or whatever? Like, you were
like
at that
8
spot?
feet. Yeah, we were
God
we
damn.
walked up right to the front. And
About
then,
a brick's throw away.
yeah. And, but that was just one location. Everywhere else you went to, it was smiles, laughter, music, literally dancing. I mean, it was like very vibey. And so if the only thing people saw from the LA No Kings protest was that one thing, I think they got a totally incorrect impression of what that event was. The event was nonviolent. What happened over there was separate from the protest. The protest had already ended at that point.
So wait, what did you do if you and IRI left and then 20 minutes later this happened? What did you and IRI do to incite it? How are you?
They had like a Looney Tunes contraption with like a catapult that like goes off in 20 minutes once the like a hourglass filled with sand like goes down. Do you remember that? Do you remember that contraption from Family Guy where it like sets off dominoes?
Yes, it's like a Rube Goldberg. Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
He did that, but it was with a catapult with a brick.
Yeah, I could see Hutch walking away going, "Hey, check this out!" And like launching a firecracker or something like that, and just letting the chips fall where they may. Well, that's awesome, man. I'm glad you were safe there and that you have a productive ceasefire.
It was super safe. It was at no point did I feel threatened at all. Like it was you got to go to one of these at least once in your life just so you can get that juice, Can
I ask a mildly shit stirry question?
Right after Pisco reveals what's popping with him.
Well, no, I want to hear the question because the only thing I want to say is if you're going to do the protest, you should definitely, get your receipts in order so you can get reimbursed by Soros. But yeah, what's the shit story question, Connor?
So I keep hearing this name, or at least I've heard this name a couple of times. I actually watched a segment where some fellows by the name of the Vanguard were attacking our boy Hutch, but they're friendly with some other people on the panel. But the term the Vanguard is like, that's kind of like, oh, they're commies.
I don't fuck with them.
Leninist commies. And so I was just kind of wondering what's going on there.
They throwing shade at my boy Hutch. They're gonna have to come and stand on ground. And you know what? They're coming.
Are they commies?
At some point, they're coming. They're they're
Are they Are they commies or are they coming?
Both.
Commies.
Them boys coming.
C-O-M-M-I-E-S.
I don't know what they're doing right now. I don't know if they're coming right now. I don't know what they're doing, but they certainly skew. I don't know if they're avowed communists, but they are definitely socialists. There's no question about that.
They're commies.
I mean, with a name like the Vanguard, I mean, that's
what I was thinking. I was like, oh man.
What do you think of the Vanguard Counterpoints? You're playing a little coy. Counterpoints comes in, he's like, yeah, I don't really know who I think they're called the like, you know exactly who these people are, right? Can you stop?
No,
playing
I
coy?
really don't.
You fucking
it's
do.
not whether or not I've seen their faces. To me, they look like two young, pissed off stoner Zoomer kids talking shit about politics. That's all I know about them. That's genuinely all I know.
They got it in their head. I don't know what it was about. There's something about me. I think it was just like I just ended up. There was like a 2-month stretch where I was just constantly sparring with lefty people, and I don't want to. Like I don't want that to be the use of my time. So I'm trying to be just more intentional.
And by the way,
but I think it just escalated and escalated. But they have it in their head that they called me like a Destiny sycophant. I have no doubt that when they come onto the pod, we have a conversation. Like I don't expect it to get crazy personally.
Pisco, that's where
Zach's gonna get wild. I imagine Gavin's gonna be super chill.
If there's a civil war between the boomer libs and the 20-year-old leftists, I have to pick my side, and I'm gonna go with the boomer libs.
So you're on Hutch's side.
Yeah,
Team Hutch. Yeah,
solidarity. Yeah.
What side would your wife be on? I don't know why I asked it like that, but
I don't. Are you Rob Noor? What's going on here? So
wait.
Yes,
can you go over
yes,
that
he
beef real
is.
quick?
Go more into their many similarities between Rob Noor and Pisco.
Wait.
The many.
Can we just real quick? There's 2 observations I want to make. One is Hutch spoke about IRI and him being at an event together. IRI is someone that I would expect to be taller. He's not short. He's like my height. But
we're about the same height. We're about the same height.
No fucking way. He's like
taller.
6'1", but you're like 6'3", 6'4".
I've heard you're taller, Hutch.
I'm 6'3". I mean, I think
he's not 6'3". He's 6.
Well, he's around the same height. Connor's
Yeah.
pretty tall too.
Connor's also like 6'3", 6'4". Yeah.
Wait, you're 6'3", Connor?
I'm 6'4".
Yeah, Connor was taller than me, but when we were in person, these guns right here outmatched his. Okay, and that's all that
Wait.
matters.
Oh,
That's right.
flex a little bit for us, Connor.
Hang on, wait. Let me put him into the wider shot. There you go.
Wow,
Oh shit!
look at that.
Damn,
The gun
okay.
show.
No. I don't have a gun. Guys. I lied. I can do a pull up, which I find to be impressive at my weight, but that's all I've got.
For me, it's
Go.
my weight and my age. I do all right. So,
Okay.
but yeah.
Well,
so
I do want to say.
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
go for it. You go.
No,
Wait,
no,
did
I
you
want
move
to.
these so
There's
you
a
can see
topic I
my
want to
arms
dive
better?
into at some point, but let's do your thing. Check in real quick. Let's do that.
yeah,
my
you
only-
got to check in, Pisco. You didn't do your check in. What's new? What's
Traveled the
poppin'?
world.
There's well, yeah, I went to Australia and I came back. There's some personal stuff. Someone's getting married in my life, not me, but so there's a lot of excitement around that. There's a very cool situation. I'm setting up like my editors and shit. I'm streaming more regularly as well. But yeah, no, just great stuff. The country is. Everything's fine in the country, no problems whatsoever, and so yeah, everything's cool. Rob Noor and I are starting a show together. Just kidding, that's not happening.
I would tune in to that. Just to
Wouldn't that be a
clear.
sick show though? Wouldn't that be a sick show? Come on.
It wouldn't fucking end. It would just be wouldn't be
It'd be
multiple episodes. It would
10
just
hours.
keep going. Yeah.
No, but that's it for me. We should get into the news at some point, or we should get into Counterpoints and what his whole deal is. What's going on?
You want to be in Counterpoints?
Listen,
What are you getting at?
I'm very
According to
popular
Tim
in
Pool,
some
that's not healthy.
Wait, what did he do?
Tim
What
Pool? You
do?
mean the anti-war guy Tim Pool, who's oddly quiet? I'd say.
It's like,
Well,
anal
yeah,
sex
but he-
causes incontinence. That's just a scientific fact. Like, it was,
Well-
was that were you when you were there, Econo Boy, or was that somebody else? You were on.
He
Wait,
did-
you were on Tim Pool recently as well, Connor.
They debated each other.
Right.
Yeah.
We went together,
yeah, that's
Connor and
right.
I, and yeah, Tim did bring up the theory. This is a really stupid theory that some people bring up, and Connor didn't bite on this one to talk about how bad welfare is. One of the arguments that's really funny is an evolutionary argument, right? Because you're allowing the sick and disabled and elderly to live and not fend for themselves. We're going to create some sort of idiocracy or some sort of, disabledocracy or whatever you call it.
It's the don't feed the bears argument, where if you feed the bears for too long, they become dependent on human food and all that kind of stuff.
Yes.
I'd like to think that we're like socially evolved enough as creatures that we could create social systems where we don't like cause people to become the people from what's that, Wall-E? Where they're on the spaceship,
Oh,
and
yeah.
they're drinking like a smoothie and they
Wall-E,
become
huh?
500 pounds and all that kind of shit. I'm
Well-
hoping that we can design social policy to avoid that outcome.
Yeah, the big thing is that that's not really how evolution works. Is really the big
Minor
well,
detail.
You can't because evolution happens over the course of like millions of years, not a few thousand, not a few hundred years of welfare policy. I don't think would.
Wait a second. When did
cause
humans first emerge? When were the first humans?
The Bible says 6,000 years ago, asshole.
No,
I'm
like
doing the
Tucker
100
Carlson.
No, like
I'm doing the
150,000
Tucker Carlson.
years ago when there were different species and all that kind of stuff.
Right.
And I think that it
Homo
can be
erectus.
argued that there's like epigenetic shit that happens at like the century
You
or
seem to know a lot
1,000-year
about
level.
race science, Connor.
Well, yeah. If you want
Not
to get
too
into that, I can
unsurprising
bust
for
out
a
my ruler.
Warhammer 40k enjoyer.
Yeah. Connor is who here did you we all have a certain percentage Neanderthal. Who amongst us do you think has the highest percentage Neanderthal?
No, I actually do. I know I do. I have a 23andMe that says I have like I forget. It's something absurd. It's like 4%,
5% Neanderthal.
Yeah, it's up there.
I think it would be kind of dope to live in Pangea for a bit. Like, just one.
Yeah, as long as you don't
continent.
die from like drinking river water and shitting.
No,
your
you have
pants.
you
Yeah,
keep
besides
all
that'd
of
be dope.
you keep all of the modern amenities. You just all of a sudden we have this massive thing, and all the continents get smushed together.
Yeah.
No more oceans.
For those like me, educated in Kentucky, but did not have the benefit of a Yankee grandmother,
You don't know about
Pangea is the
Pangea?
supercontinent that used to exist before it was separated. Just to let you know, just
don't
saying.
know about Pangea.
Yeah, I had Google. Okay, I had Google, but All right, so we had the No Kings protest. That was huge. Let's close the circle on this.
Wait. Can we do the military protest real quick? I mean, because we have a military guy, ex-military guy here, Connor.
The military
that was one of the
protest.
lamest fucking. I said protest. I meant parade.
Parade.
Thank you.
Yeah, I was kind of confused by what you
parade.
meant there.
My
Okay.
bad. My bad.
Oh
My
my
bad. I misspoke.
God.
That is one of like the lamest things I've ever seen. Sparsely attended, like.
So there's
weird
nuance to that
shit.
though. There's
What's the
nuance to that though, because apparently a decent amount of people did show up, but did you guys see about like the way that they set it up?
One entrance.
Yeah, there was like one entrance that was like 2 miles away, and it
People
was
were bottlenecked.
like never-ending zigzag barrier situation, and so there was a huge bottleneck.
And then the VIP area was like poorly administered, so only like a third of the VIP area was full.
But even the marchers weren't marching in time.
Oh,
No,
well,
it-
yeah,
doing
no,
their
trust me,
job.
it was still
I've been
pathetic. It was
chatting
just
mad shit on Twitter because like the Marine Corps, I'm a Marine veteran. We pride ourselves on like good drill and ceremony, being capable of actually like
Did you
keeping
just do a black
stats and all that kind of stuff.
accent?
What's that?
We pride ourselves on.
We
Did
do.
you just do okay, but did you just
Okay,
become
well, listen,
more
I'm not going to
country?
bust out the Kentucky Vosh accent, but every now and then I do live in Florida after all. But so the point is that the Marine Corps does pride itself on drill and ceremony, and watching the Army schlub in like ACU Army combat uniforms and just kind of like out of step, just kind of waddling down the thoroughfare was absolutely wild.
What do you think just inherently, about this notion of a military parade? Let's separate Trump's birthday out of it, okay? There wasn't a military parade for the 200th anniversary or the 225th anniversary. What is just about the notion of a domestic military parade? Do you support it? Are you opposed to it? Are you neutral on it? What do you think?
Well, I think I saw some quotes from Eisenhower where effectively he was dogging it, except for specific victory parades. So if there's like a military accomplishment that's achieved, you're coming back from the Persian Gulf War, you're coming back from Vietnam or something like that, then in that case, like you want to honor the troops who fought on your behalf. I'm okay with that. However, like an annual parade or whatever, there's two things that people hate in the military, and it's basically standing around in heat and dog and pony shows. So I think that the correct mentality is we don't prove that our military is cool by going on drill and ceremony parades. We prove that our military is cool by being competent at warfare. So yeah, that's where I landed, basically in line with Eisenhower.
Real quick super chat. Got to interrupt for the super chats in all of our streams. I don't know whose this is, but will Kalinske finally endorse the Dem nominee in 2028? He's talking a big game against Trump now, but I can't forgive his, quote, both sides bad rhetoric during the last 3 presidential elections. Keep up the great work.
He'll
boys.
come around. He'll come around.
he seems to have evolved on this, but I don't even think we need to wait until 2028. I think 2026 is a good litmus test. So if we see him encouraging his supporters or his followers, his viewers to support Democratic nominees all over the country, then I think we'll get the answer to that question.
You know what? I'm just going to text him that and be like, hey, listen, the people want an answer. All right. So getting back to it, though, so you're open to military parades in the Eisenhower approach, which is for specific military victories. Okay, so now let's add the Trump birthday wrinkle to it. So now they were trying to be fastidious in the lead up to the parade that, this is just sheer coincidence, it has nothing to do with Trump's birthday. And then like Fox News, they gave the game away. I remember this one tweet. I did a whole fucking video about it because it just triggered me, where they were like, Donald Trump is turning 79 and he's sharing the spotlight. He is sharing the spotlight with the Army's
gracious.
200. Yeah. Did that change the calculus for you at all?
Yeah, dude. This is the easiest talking point in the world. The Marine Corps, what we were emphasized in boot camp repeatedly was the fact that there's a reason why the Constitution is mentioned first in the oath of enlistment. It's because we are supposed to follow the lawful orders of the officers put in charge of us and the President of the United States. However, the Constitution is first, and so we defer to it as the supreme law of the land. That's obviously something that's been instantiated in our military culture for at least a century. And then I was trying to think of the other part is like the way that republics die, I'm a history nerd as well, is that, Rome died and fell into the imperial times by an army marching on Rome and installing an emperor. Basically the consul for life with Julius Caesar. And then there was also another, when I was taking a history class, there was another West African kingdom that was supposed to be very advanced, where they separated the military leadership from the civilian leadership. And they effectively said that the army can't march on the capital. They have to stay outside the capital. And of course that died, that city-state died when the army marched on the capital. So yeah, this whole like blurring of the lines of military civilian leadership is very creepy, off-putting, and contradictory to our values as a nation.
To say nothing of the fact that we have deployments of Marines, active duty Marines in cities to presumably help enforce, laws against civilians.
Yeah, there's a broader context too that I think we really need to examine, especially again, like the most recent development being the hot war between Israel and Iran. We'll definitely get to that, but I guess to close the loop on the parade itself, like when you watch the parade, did anyone actually like watch it or do like a recap of it?
Just the clips, the army schlubbing it about, and then also the Sherman tanks from World War II. They're old as hell, so they're squeaky. So there's just the entire audience sitting there staring at them, and it's like, squeak, squeak.
Well, two things to note, though, about Trump's birthday relevant to the parade is that at one point after he speaks, they sing him happy birthday, which I thought was super fucking gross.
The military did?
We didn't see any cameras. I don't know if any troops did. The camera was on him when people in front of him were singing happy birthday. It could have been the troops. It could have been the crowd. It could have been a combination thereof. You need to consider that.
Can we just say the birthday song is cringe? It's cringe.
As fuck. Especially in that context. But then the
what
other
about
thing,
that brag speech too?
That's what I'm saying. We're definitely gonna get to that too. But like then they handed him a commemorative flag. So I guess in summation, do you think that this in a vacuum was a major step towards the end of the Republic? Because I hear a lot about that. This is end of the Republic shit, or do you think it was just in tandem with the other stuff that we're about to talk about?
I think we'll survive. I think the Never Kings are going to be the people who come out on top. Listen, there's enough momentum here. Think about how many things he's jacked up. He's jacked up the economy
you can say
in the
fuck.
first 100.
You can say fuck, yeah.
Well, I'll try to be polite. So he jacked up the economy in the first 120 days. He's created the worst optics for mass deportation possible. He's flip-flopped on mass deportation, saying that he was going to stop it for farmers and stop it for service industry. He's bungling, regardless of whether or not you think the Iranian conflict, which I'm sure we'll get to, he's not being decisive in reference to the Iranian conflict. So he's pissing off his base while simultaneously not making a firm decision one way or the other. I get that it's serious and he needs to make a serious decision, but I don't trust him to do it when he's tweeting out phrases like evacuate Tehran, and that's like his foreign policy. So I think that he's just going to bungle so many things between the midterms. I'm counting down the days to the midterm so we can make him a lame duck. Then I'm counting down the days so we can kick him out. And then I don't think that there's another person who can replace Trump with that similar level of cult of personality. I think we'll survive this.
All right, who wants to take over the next line of questions for Connor, especially with all the context we have?
It doesn't have to be all me, guys.
What?
I'm here to
No, we're fucking
shit.
interrogating you, you piece of shit.
Well,
Okay, well, I mean, I love attention, so let's go.
Well, I mean, I just want to piggyback off what you just said. I mean, he is especially vulnerable right now. And there's a lot of polling right now to suggest a serious slippage. Like, I think Pew and AP had him at like literally negative 17. And on top of that, the big beautiful bill is polling terribly. It's like 35% approve, 55 disapprove. His own base Wall Street Journal just reported, I think, a short time ago that they have war plans drawn up for Iran or strike plans, and he's supposedly holding off to see if they will abandon their nuclear program. But I mean, even just talk of doing this, we've already seen that it's pissed off some really enormously, I think, influential people. His coalition right now is so fragile, and I think now is just a really good time to pounce on that. But he's not in a strong position. Things are just not going his way right now, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, I don't know how weak his coalition is necessarily. I mean, I think the reality is again, one of the symptoms of a cult of personality, we've talked about this before, about how like when the government in like fascist Italy would do something that was clearly bad, the cult of personality of Mussolini would lead to a lot of people saying, oh my goodness, this is terrible, but it can't be Mussolini's fault. It must be the people around him. It must be the corruption in the government. And so what we'll see is a bunch of these sycophants who say, oh, I'm so against the war in Iran. I'm so against, bombing of Iran. Trump's getting bad. You're already hearing this. Oh, Trump's getting bad advice from the Zionist neocons and his administration. Dude, Trump's a fucking adult, okay? He's not a dumb kid, okay? He's a dumb adult, to be fair, but he is an adult, okay? Like, we can't just
he's
say,
actually an old guy, and he's like...
I was about to say.
We should check an actuarial table. He's almost at the end of his expected life.
Yeah, my only point is, like, that's the exact rhetoric you'll hear, right? And that's what'll be so frustrating. And then in 2028, and I'm curious if Connor disagrees or agrees with this, what will we see? We'll see wall-to-wall conservatives. I'll be curious if Connor does the same thing. Okay, we'll see. I think Connor is probably different. But, Vance is different. He's not Trump. He's a totally different guy. So there's no reason to think that any of the shit that happened under Trump would happen under Vance. You dumb fucks. Anyway, sorry. I got really triggered.
No, what I'm scared about with Vance is I've already seen him sell his soul for power. Same thing with Marco Rubio. I've seen like principled stances that they talked about 5 years ago, 7 years ago, 3 years ago. They've totally sold that out for whatever Trump says right now. That's what they sold it out for. So there could be totally contradictory statements within 48 hours and it doesn't matter. And I hope that there's a part of it that's eating at their soul. This is presuming that they actually have souls to slowly eat away at. But no, I think Vance could be deadly, particularly if they run a weak Democratic candidate. But I think that's on the Democrats to lose. I don't think that's on the Republicans to win.
Not if he takes us to war. Like if we go to war in Iran, I think the Republican Party will collapse. Like a big part of the reason why Obama won with enormous margins was people were really sick of that war.
I think if there's
it's a second term too.
If there's a ground conflict in Iran, that would be one thing. I mean, the reality is I don't think you could do a ground war in Iran without congressional approval. Maybe airstrikes, Republicans will let him get away with it, ultimately speaking. We're going to pass some resolution against it, but he just vetoes it anyway. And nobody gives a fuck in the Republican Party ultimately. But it'd be very difficult to have a massive invasion of Iran without a congressional approval. And so I don't think that's likely to happen is all to say, Hutch.
I'm with the Kano boy here. I think a limited air campaign is infinitely more likely, but I do think that you will fracture the MAGA base because regardless of whatever Trump's rhetoric is, as far as we'll always support Israel, we'll always do this, we'll always do that. He also has a long line of at least public perception that he is the peace candidate. He doesn't get involved in Middle Eastern and North African affairs. He kind of does this. And I think the Israel stuff, where he offered to effectively like ethnically cleanse Gaza for Israel, I think that was shocking for the base. And then I also think that a limited air campaign would be similarly shocking.
But Connor, why would the base
pause real quick? I'm sorry, we got to do super chats before they disappear.
Bitch.
As an Air Force guy, we don't care about marching as much as the Army, and we do better in basic. What do you guys think about the idea that it was an intentional protest due to Trump's ego trip?
Intentional.
I want to think that, but I don't believe it.
What does he mean by that?
Generally speaking, the Army's stupid as hell, so it's hard for me to...
Wow.
One other super chat. When are the identitarians that traditionally vote Republican in states like Texas going to hold their representatives accountable? What is their red line? So Conboy is the resident Texan. What do you think?
Well, that's what I was going to say, right? And I'd be curious what Connor's opinion is on this, is that I really don't think, like when we say fracturing, right? If you were to say, oh, like Trump's approval goes from 45 to like 41, it's like, okay, I could see that. I could see something like that. And don't get me wrong, if you get 41% of the vote in an election, that's a landslide loss, right? Democrats get 60 Senate seats and 300 members of the House or something crazy like that. However, we just have to define our terms here because, Trump greatly expanded the drone war in his first term. He increased bombings in Syria. I didn't hear anybody in his base giving that much of a fuck about that. And now, you might say, and maybe this is the case, that Iran's built different. People will assume that's a much more serious thing. Maybe. I don't know. I
think we're already seeing signs of that, though. Like Marjorie Taylor Greene is like publicly rebuking Trump. I mean, I feel like that's no small thing. Same with like Tucker Carlson.
Yeah,
But
I was going to say
couched in.
too.
Wait, no, they say we love Trump. Trump is the best.
The
Trump,
bad advisors, right?
It's
It's
the
the
bad
cult
advisors
personality.
meme.
Yeah, it's not
Have you seen
actually
anyone
Isn't
other
there
than
a
Dave
Russian
Smith
saying about that?
I'm
Say
not
again,
sure.
Counterpoints?
What's the saying?
There's some saying where effectively it's like the czar isn't bad. It's like bad kulaks or krulaks or something like that. And effectively what happens is, when things are good, the czar is good. But when things are bad, it's because of the emperor's administrators, not because of the emperor himself.
Yeah.
And so that was a way to like criticize the government without criticizing the czar. And so it was kind of common in authoritarian societies.
Oh, you see that now with the Republican Party, right? How many times have we heard, particularly during, the second term? I'd have to go back and see how common it was in term one. Everybody's bitching at, the Secretary of State, Secretary of Defense. It's never Trump. It's never Trump. It is always Trump never fails. It's people fail Trump, right?
And there it is.
Yeah.
Cause and effect says good czar, bad boyars. That's exactly what I was talking about.
Yeah, but
do we want to talk about?
It's not a big revolt. It's not an actual revolt against Trump himself, the person of Trump. Even Tucker's criticism, where he says that Trump is complicit. The strongest language has been from someone like Dave Smith, and even then, like
who sucks in his own way, by the way.
Dave Smith. Okay, listen. All right, I get so frustrated. I'm sorry for interrupting you. Okay, I get so frustrated by Dave Smith because he's like, oh my! I love when people say, "Oh, I could have never known this would happen under Trump." Pisco, you've talked about that before. I'd love to hear what you have to say to that. I could have never known that Trump would have done such a thing. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, no. I think that they just weren't listening to Trump, and Trump has this ability to be this Rorschach for everyone to impose their own ideology or their own rationale, to the point that even now there are people arguing equal and opposite things based on the same exact evidence. Either that it's very clear that Trump was always planning to betray the Iranians in this kind of fake negotiation ploy, or that it's very clear that, Charlie Kirk just tweeted, it's very clear that Trump is doing everything maximally to get peace and to do a deal. And so it's just all this big like fucking cope fest from every possible angle.
Do you think Charlie Kirk hates himself? Like I pray like every single day he wakes up and he splashes water on his face and he's just like, holy shit, Charlie, you fucking suck. Because that guy sucks.
I'm sorry. Tennessee did a super chat as well. I don't know if you saw that in the chat.
Tennessee frisky. Iran has folded quickly. If Trump dismantles Iran's nuclear program, which Iran has been reportedly willing, it will be seen as the greatest W of the 20th century. Trump will sweep midterms over this.
Well, first of all, it's the 21st century. Second of all.
Sorry, that's total cope, Tennessee. I'm sorry, but this is absurd. Not only, oh my God, my dog. All right, ignore me. My dog just walked into my camera.
Yeah, I can tell because you froze the
your camera
froze hard.
Yeah,
I mean, I think the issue is that regime change. I spoke about this just recently on Wix channel before we started recording here. Regime change in Iran really probably under an air campaign wouldn't look nearly what it looks like in Syria, wouldn't look nearly what it looked like in Iraq back in 2003. In part, that's because, look, even if you were to cut off the head of the snake and get rid of the Ayatollah and a lot of the clerical leadership, you still have this totalizing infrastructure of oppression in Iran, right? They have all of this infrastructure to oppress the population, and the IRGC would probably just take over under probably a more secular regime, which would be better for Iranian people, but certainly it wouldn't be a pro-Western regime. Certainly it wouldn't be a regime pro-Israel. Certainly it wouldn't be a regime that was democratic and liberal in nature. And certainly as well, it would be a very chaotic situation. So I just, probabilistically, yeah, sure. If this happens and we get like liberal, democratic, pro-Western, pro-Israel, secular Muslim democracy in the Middle East, like, sure, that would be a win for Trump and it would make him look real good. But I mean, that's just such a low probability to happen in this scenario.
Is there not a risk of... Go ahead, Connor.
Go ahead.
Is there not a risk of galvanizing support for the regime if the West attacks in this kind of way?
Sure.
Strategically, yes. I mean, the regime is not particularly popular amongst like the actual core of Iranian citizenry. Of course, the regime can get a really big crowd out, but those are sycophantic people. It's also been known that the regime will pay people to go to things like that. So how genuine is that support, right? We're talking about a very fervent minority of the population. And so it's hard to say. I mean, in that regard, my prediction would be that you might see like some strategic nationalism amongst the core of Iranian people. But, you know, I don't know. It's just like you said, Hutch, it is a very risky thing holistically. What I would be more afraid of is if you have American bombers flying over Iran, you might start to see these sort of terrorist cell groups that Iran supports or Iran directly think that they can start, attacking America and doing sort of damage to our civilian population. Not that it would look like another 9/11 necessarily, but you know, it wouldn't be particularly surprising to see, you know, a terrorist attack in this country, sponsored by the Houthis or something like that. If all of a sudden American bombers are flying over Iran.
I don't think we would have the energy for another prolonged land campaign, though. And then Tennessee Frisky or whatever, feel free to shoot me a DM. But I think we're running the show right now, so I don't think we're bringing on debaters just yet, right?
Yeah, I mean, if people want it, like at the end, if people want to step up, I don't mind opening it up. I just can't go until like 10 o'clock tonight.
Right.
So that's why I want to focus on Connor.
So I think we're more running the topic right now. But so I just don't think that there's a lot of maybe I'm projecting a personal bias right now. Tennessee Frisky, you're coping. Anyways, I'm projecting a personal bias, but I feel like Americans are exhausted of like land wars in Eurasia to the point that like a mass deployment of 250,000 Americans with $2 or $3 trillion price tag with $10,000 dead. We just got done doing that in the past 10 years. I don't think that there's any appetite for that. However, like a limited bombing campaign, I actually think would be what would be like acceptable, I guess. If Trump effectively caved in a few like nuclear sites or whatever, that's like the one thing that he could do that I think could bounce back by the midterms.
With how polarized things have gotten, especially in the 21st century, what do you guys think would like, I don't know if it would look like post September 11th. Like post September 11th, there was a enormous surge of patriotism, jingoism. Would that happen if a big attack happened in 2025?
No, I don't think so. I think because the cultural memory of what happened after 9/11 and how eventually that spell of patriotism wore off and, you know, President Bush left office, an historically unpopular president, I think that would be the case, number one. Number two, I would expect overall people are just less generally patriotic about the nation as they were 20 years ago. What I will also tell you,
certainly more conspiratorial as well.
100%. And I think for those of us, the 50% of the country that dislikes Trump, I think they would see no reason to, fall in line the way that the expectation was post 9/11, because we recognize that Trump is a uniquely malevolent actor. And we also know that it would never be reciprocated. I mean, you had right-wing actors like they were fucking pitching a tent. They were so horny at the notion of a domestic terror attack on President Biden's watch. And you can bet your ass that if Biden walked out there like Bush often did, it was like, okay, I'm the president. We suffered some sort of terror attack. Shut the fuck up and do what I tell you, because that's what patriots do. Republicans would absolutely reject that because patriotism is only one-sided for them. So no, if something like that were to happen, I don't think that you would see that sort of thing.
Yeah, they would have blamed it on Biden.
The polling indicates as well that the MAGA base are more likely to support the actions here, and that it's the Republicans who don't construe themselves as MAGA that are sort of not in line. And so,
that's kind of crazy to me, because I do see an inverse between what's being stated online and what the alleged polling is. 100%, because I think somebody said that there's Trump polling that actually shows that like 80% of Americans would support some kind of limited military campaign against Iran, whereas every single thing that I see on social media is effectively them saying like the neocons have co-opted Trump. He's listening to the Zio shills. He's trying to start World War III, all that kind of stuff. So I actually think that's weird that there's such a massive disconnect between polling and punditry.
I was talking specifically about the MAGA specific polling. I think when you ask the question different ways, you get different answers. If you ask, should America be involved in the Iran-Israel war, it's only something like 16% by a poll that I saw that say that they want that. But if you ask, should Iran get a nuclear weapon, you have massive support, 80+% no.
Or should the U.S. act to prevent Iran from developing a weapon? It's like it's a majority support. Like, the United States should do something. I saw some polling indicating that there's even popular support in some polls for airstrikes or for military intervention against Iran. Now it tends to be in the low 50s.
I need to point this out. Like republicanism is supposed to be like all about representative democracy, where we have the best people in charge who are able to make like evaluations of policy. And Democrats, you know, root word being demos, are all supposed to be about like the popular will of the people and all that kind of crap. And you effectively have Republicans appealing to populism in order to justify it. Like, I don't know if you've ever seen like the Trump has a mandate thing, but they effectively didn't update their talking points from election night, where they're saying like, oh, he had a 10 million person sweep. And they don't realize that actually, after all the counting was done, he was only up by like 1.2%.
Yeah. I
Well,
mean, like,
it's
sorry, go ahead. No, you go ahead.
well, yeah, I mean, this is just right-wing populist error under the Republican Party. I mean, that shouldn't be totally surprising. Obviously, to a great degree, you know, we on this show have said that the Democrats, you know, could at least dip their toe in that a little bit to try and help their electoral chances. And so that's not totally surprising. I mean, look, I said, look, my hope, and by the way, just want to say we were a couple 100,000 votes away from this being the case. My actual hope that I stated on this show several times was that Kamala would lose the popular vote, but
And
win the Electoral College.
You did say that.
Because that would have been number one, such a hilarious victory lap. We're not a democracy, we're a republic. Because Connor, you know as well as I do, all of a sudden Trump would be the most anti-fucking Electoral College person on the
No,
planet.
not
the
only
next
that,
day.
the MAGA base, man. It's crazy.
No, exactly.
And so we would.
And so there would be a brief opening, you know, for the running back to run through 99-yard touchdown to abolish the Electoral College if something like that happened.
There was a small push for that in 2012 when they thought that Obama was going to win the Electoral College but lose the popular vote. Like there was like a brief moment where they were like, fuck the Electoral College.
Yeah, because Obama,
the closest we ever got was under Nixon. Like Nixon of all people, like back to a sentiment to effectively, it was either abolishing the Electoral College or was like the interstate compact, basically making that a matter of federal law.
Yeah. Well, it was, you know, I don't think that, and I think that this has been, I mean, for God's sakes, the day before Trump won the election, Republicans, it was like 25% of them said that they believe we have sound sort of secure elections. The day after Trump won the election, it's like 75-80% of them say, oh no, the elections are great now. Like, we don't live in a country and we don't live in a political environment. And I don't know that we've ever had this. We're just so polarized. Like, I don't know if it's like people back then had stronger principles. They just were less polarized. But like for one reason or another, like people don't have very strong ideological principles. That's like 1% of people. Most people, you know, they don't take their voting decisions super duper seriously. And if they do, it's not for very deep ideological reasons. It's for, you know, wishy-washy type, like incoherent type shit that people vote on, right? That's on Democrats.
Oh, can I? Yeah, I figured this out because it was actually frustrating me for a really long time. This might seem obvious being said. Democrats have to stop talking about policy. Because what happens is you're like, oh, well, you know, with the corporate tax rate, it's currently set at 33%, but with deductions and it's an effective tax rate of 7% and blah, 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 blah. And all that happens is 50% of the audience checks out. And then the other 50% of the audience who knows what you're saying checks out 30 seconds in. What you need to say is, I want good taxes to pay for good programs so Americans have good lives. That's it.
That's what the Counterpoints were saying for a minute there. Just frame it like much simpler populist rhetoric.
Yeah,
no, but I'm saying like
messaging. Yeah.
Do not do 40 words.
Yeah, you need, I mean, this is, again, the political economy. I've thought about maybe writing about this. The political economy of the Democrats is completely bankrupt, right? Like we have to think about, a lot of wonks on Twitter will be like, oh, this optimal policy, this and that, and I don't know about this or that, whatever. And it's like, guys, again, we have to think about the political economy here. Like, even if, like, let's just to say this, right? Let's just say, oh, you know, single payer healthcare is, we could divine into the universe that it is not an optimal system to, you know, manage healthcare that way. What it is a type of political economy that at the very least reproduces itself, and it's a little bit more static, right? We can say, hey, everyone gets this nice, you know, golden healthcare plan from the government. It's a universal program. Everyone is, you know, insured by it. You don't have to worry about this bullshit with your private insurer anymore. And then if you actually muster up the courage to pass a program like that, what do we see in every single country that passes a universal single payer system or any kind of universal health insurance system, you know, public option, single payer NHS style system? It has like an 85-90% approval rating, and you cannot get rid of it because when you have,
that was already too many words. good
Well, no, no.
health care.
Yeah. I'm not saying we should explain
He's
the
peeking
political
under the
economy,
hood,
right?
Connor. Come
Yeah.
on.
But I'm saying that that's one of the reasons why the Democrats' political economy is terrible, is because the Democrats, like Connor said, they'll say, oh, let's have a means-tested child tax credit that like 10% of people qualify for, right? You only let 10% of people get on a program. Guess what? It's that much easier to cut. Why do Republicans cut Medicaid and not Medicare? Why do Republicans cut Medicaid and not Social Security? Because we view those programs as essentially being entitled to everyone at the point that they are a certain amount old. But Medicare is just a means-tested program. Who cares if tens of millions of people are on it? It's only a minority of the population. So we have to think about not just what policies are actually good for people, but also what policies can stand up to turnovers in administration. And Democrats have not done that for the last 25 years.
Okay, hang on a second.
Okay, here we
No,
go.
it's-
Shit on
back on
lefties.
this
Shit on lefties.
Uh-oh.
No, but like when you say Democrats haven't done the thing, like what do you think they could have done but they didn't do?
So I think, for instance, if you wanted to advocate for a child tax credit, you could say, hey, child tax credit for everyone administered through the Social Security Administration. Every single person gets it. We're not doing any of this bullshit means testing. We're not going to make you file your taxes to get it. That's a much broader base of people. It obviously lowers the poverty rate much more if you do that. And it's a program that actually
Wait, how
goes
do
to
you get a
everyone.
child's tax credit without filing your taxes?
Well, again, it could be administered through the Social Security Administration. Everyone has a Social Security card. Every baby born, like 99.99% of babies born have a Social Security card. They're registered. So you could just send them a check directly. Obviously, they'd have to link a bank account or something like that, but that's a much simpler process
Do you
than
have to
filing
prove
your
the
taxes.
child?
Well, again, everyone gets their Social Security. That's already done implicitly with the Social
Got it.
Security system. So that's just an example, right? But like with our healthcare proposal, it's the same thing, right? It's like, okay, we're going to expand Medicaid, but only in certain states. And then if you qualify for a tax credit, you can get the open market plan. And it's like, holy fuck, guys.
Okay,
this is
but
a system that is
really
quick. This is a system that's easy to dismantle because it's terrible to actually interact with, and people don't like it because of how complicated it is. Democrats need simpler policies and messaging.
But you have to defeat the fiscal conservative monster. You have to.
Nah,
because
you don't.
You
That doesn't
have
exist,
to understand.
There's no Connor. Fiscal
Every
conservatives
room.
don't exist, Connor. They don't
What?
exist. Look at the budget that the Republicans just proposed.
Yeah. But you're talking about talking points to a base. I'm not saying politicians are actually fiscal conservative.
They did
I'm
it in
saying
the
that
first
they
term,
use it
and
as
they
rhetoric.
voted for it 2 times in a row.
Calm down. You spoke for 5 minutes. I want to
speak for another
2.
5 minutes. Goddammit.
Okay, so what I'm saying is there's talking points that have been since Reagan, there's been talking points jammed into the right for 40 years, which is we're in debt, we're spending too much money, we're going to collapse the economy. And until you deal with the fact that every single time you bring up a social program, it could be $6.5 billion to prevent AIDS in Africa, which is $18 to each American. Do you know what happened when I told a Christian conservative family member that we cut $9 billion and we're infecting 1,500 kids per day with AIDS? They said skill issue. And this was a conservative Christian who basically said, it's not our problem, it's their problem. They need to figure that shit out. So what I'm saying is he's basing that off of a complete misunderstanding of economics and American debt and governmental debt and all that kind of stuff. And one of the things that blows my mind, do you know what the inflation rate is right now?
It's a little over 2%. It's like 2.5%.
Do you know what our average interest rate is?
It's like 4.25%. That's the Fed funds rate.
It's not even.
Whoa, you
the
can't
average
even trip
interest
this
rate
guy
on
up.
debt is like 3.5%. I would cut my left nutsack off in order to take $1 billion loan out at 1% interest. So the fact that we haven't explained this to the American people is a massive problem.
You're contradicting yourself, okay? Because at the same time that you're
I
saying,
think you just might be misunderstanding me. I don't think I'm contradicting
Oh.
myself.
I think you are, because the problem is, okay, you have
I'm not saying I'm a
After
conservative.
Econoboy, we got a text from Kyle. He answered the super chat. So
Oh shit.
No, I was just going to
I'm
say
not saying
that,
I'm
look,
a fiscal
I think-
conservative. I'm saying you have to deal with the rhetoric.
Yeah. Well, just to be clear, anybody who calls themselves a fiscal conservative is probably not voting for Democrats in the first place. But here's what I'll say to that, is that fiscal conservatism is not actually a real thing. They voted for Trump, who said he'd blow up the deficits. He then did that in his first term. They voted for him in 2020, and then he's doing the exact same fucking
Yeah,
thing.
but what
in
rhetoric was he
2024.
using? Econoboy, you have to separate the politicians from the voters. The
Counterpoint.
voters believe this
Counterpoint.
shit, bro.
Counterpoint. I'm
The
not
voters
saying that a
believe this
Democrat-
shit, bro.
Yeah, counterpoints. I'm not saying that a Democrat should come out and say, who gives a shit how it's funded? Let's just put all of it on a credit card. That would be idiotic. Okay. You obviously have to have some rhetoric in that regard. But it sounded like what you were saying is, well, fuck, if you advocate for a universal program, they're going to say that it's too expensive. And it's like, well, no shit. Like, obviously, every policy that you advocate for, there's going to be some compelling counter argument that the opposition latches itself onto. But that's not really worth.
I'm telling you, that's why we don't have nice things, though, is because people think that we can't afford it.
Okay, let me just say, like, I think we're straying from the point. The reason why we didn't get a universal child tax credit was because they wouldn't have had the votes for that. That's my point.
Oh my God.
No,
we can't keep doing this, Hutch. We can't keep doing it, Hutch.
Hold on a second. This is so fucking important. And first of all, you're wrong about the child tax credit. 9 out of 10 kids qualified for this. You're making it seem as though only 10% of kids were covered by the child tax credit. Number two, if it would have been a universal program, they would not have had the votes to pass that. You are just wrong about this.
Hutch, I didn't say that you could. We're talking about what to run on during a campaign, okay? Obviously, you have to make some compromises.
You said that the Democrats could have done all those things and they chose not to. And I asked you brought up the child. Hold on. You brought up the child tax credit, and you're wrong. They would not have had the votes to pass it. You're just wrong about this.
And the Democrat. No, that's not what I said. We were talking explicitly about how you run on these policies and how you campaign on them. Okay, Pisco agrees. He's the lawyer. He's the stenographer of this conversation.
I don't know about that. I don't know about that.
Pisco does not support child tax credits.
Okay.
He says he's fucking.
This is what I'll say. Kind of just to.
He says these goddamn kids should pull themselves up by their bootstraps.
Have you ever seen Love on the Spectrum? It's
so good.
So there's a scene in there, and it reminded me of it when Counterpoints is like, "What's the inflation rate? What's the average interest rate?" And you were answering it kind of way. It reminded me of that guy, the cowboy sweetheart, who's like, "What key is that song in? G flat, then C." Yeah.
What day of the week was like October 8th, 1998? Yeah, whatever.
Yeah. So that reminded me.
You keep talking about Democrats need to run on these universal programs. Guess what? They do in the primaries, and they lose. That's the point here.
Hutch. Okay, I don't think that a Democrat loses a primary because they say a child tax credit should be universal.
It's not just about that. I know. It's not just about one issue.
I can't even answer.
Yeah, dude. Hutch, if you want a child tax credit to be passed, you have to talk about white babies. Okay, you got to say we have the most babies. We're gonna have the most European babies. We're gonna birth so many white babies.
Of a fucking Eiffel Tower, right?
They're gonna be blonde hair. They're gonna be beautiful.
Listen,
that's what you gotta go.
When people speak over you, it's because they're afraid of the truth. Okay,
all right, let a Convoy cook.
I let you fucking talk. I bit my tongue while you and Connor went back and forth.
Convoy respond.
This narrative
of
the Democrats.
Sorry, hold on.
Democrats could have given everyone single payer health care.
To address his arguments to the right. I do on my own stream. Thank you.
Anyway, all I was saying was that during a campaign, I think this is how you more popularly orient your strategy. Obviously, if Democrats are cowardly and they don't want to actually do anything while they're in office, then that's one thing. That's the only point that I was making, was that, you might have to make compromises with your Kristen Sinemas and Joe Manchins of the world. But at the very least, when you're trying to organize a national campaign and you're trying to actually, advocate for policies that have some staying power, right? I mean, look at what happened. Joe Biden passes an expanded child tax credit. It just goes away immediately and nobody gives a fuck about it because, again, it just affects such a small minority of people. You talk about 90% of kids qualifying. 20% of people don't even file taxes, right? So that's 20% that just never even receive the child tax credit in the first place, much less the income limits that prevent them from receiving it as well. And so that's kind of my fundamental point, is that we have like the perfect experiment. We had an expanded child tax credit for 1 year, which did help. It did lower childhood poverty significantly, but it was such a bullshit program in the way that it was structured. You might say, oh, we had to make compromises, this and that. But clearly, the structure of that program was not politically resilient. So you have to care about that when you're passing and advocating for these policies, or we'll just have Republicans come into office and say,
But you're skipping over the big issue here, bro. It's like, no matter what, if you want to do a permanent program, you either need 60 votes in the Senate or you need something that 10 Republicans would sign off on.
You don't need 60 votes in the Senate for anything that I've just described. I mean, you need the majority in the
permanent
Senate.
Child tax credit?
Well, you could. It's fiscal policy, right?
You could pass under reconciliation.
No,
Yeah.
anything that goes beyond 10 years is you have to do.
Guys, I love how the world is on fire on the verge of nuclear Armageddon, and we're fighting about like
we'll
a
never
permanent
have this
tax
exact
credit
conversation.
and how to sell it to the American people.
No,
Listen,
but
guys, do you have any
you're doing
blood or
you're doing this
guts
thing-
or like boobs or something to keep the thing spicy? Like and by the way, like I love fighting about the child tax credit, but again, I don't think you're listening to what I'm saying, which is you're going to have to fight the fiscal conservatives because even if the politicians are not fiscal conservative, Econo Boy, I've said it 3 times. Listen to me now. The population responds to that kind of rhetoric.
No, they fucking don't. No, they don't.
Yes, they do. And then number 2,
do. What are you talking
appeal
about?
to vibes and social-based shit. If you start talking about money and explaining shit, you're already losing.
Hutch,
you're already losing.
Hutch, wait a
I
minute.
didn't say we should do that though, Connor.
The ACA was passed via reconciliation, and it's been 10 years. Why didn't it sunset?
That was not passed via reconciliation.
That was done with 60 votes.
Are you
Yeah.
sure? I thought it was
Yeah. That was done with a super majority of Democrats. Every single Democrat in favor.
It was done with 60 votes. I think that's because
Fucking
that package
owned.
wasn't-
Are you sure? I don't
Yeah,
know.
Yes.
Yeah, that was the whole thing with getting Lieberman on
Owned, bro.
board.
Hutch just fucking.
But
Hutch
that was the
owned you
regulatory.
So good.
That was a regulatory package as well. So they didn't just like expand they didn't just like increase the spending on program or whatever. But like, I think I could be wrong, but I don't know. I think in theory you could say like, okay, Medicaid, we're gonna like greatly lower the percentage.
Oh, it was
that-
amended with reconciliation, the Healthcare and Education Reconciliation Act of 2010.
Yeah.
Sorry, I was wrong.
Yeah, I was just, I agree that fiscal conservative rhetoric appeals to a certain type of person, right? So that's obviously important. But I was just going to say that, look, I think at the end of the day, I can only repeat this so many times that I think that no matter what your platform is, it's a margin that you're getting here. It could make the difference between winning and losing. An optimal campaign strategy does, but there's so many other things that go into it. I think at the very least, if Democrats advocate for actually optimal policies, and those optimal policies are universal welfare programs, that, hey, at the very least, if we can get them passed, then, I think that they'll just be able to sustain themselves a little bit further into the future. So
What do you think the primaries are for, bro? Like you're talking about the Democratic Party like is it this monolithic institution? But let me finish my point. Let me finish my point.
Finish.
But every couple of years, we do primary contests, and every 4 years we do primary contests. It's an intra-party conversation about universal versus means tested. And so far, historically, Democratic voters are the ones that have decided that the means tested candidates get elevated. And so if you want to do universal programs,
and you can blame that on Clinton, by the way.
Well,
I mean, you can blame it on Reagan.
Popularized that.
But
yeah, obviously. Yeah. Okay. Exactly, Connor. What was I just about to say? He popularized it, right? You need leaders willing to say things to the base. And obviously, to Hutch's point, to Hutch's point, I totally agree that Democrats in a primary have been more moderate, been a little bit more conservative. That's why we've historically had moderate Democrats for like the last 30 years or something like that. And I don't know how you judge McGovern. My history knowledge doesn't go that far back. But the point is that I get it. I agree with that. You have to convince the base to support these things. Who knows if AOC would win or lose a primary, but also who knows if it would be because of her platform.
Okay, hold on. So here's the thing. I get what you're saying. I think you're a bad salesman, and I think you don't know your market. Okay, because what happened over the past, like, this is effectively the narrative of the past, like, 70 years, okay, is that the New Deal, while well-intended in World War II, might have helped Americans. What ended up happening was it created the welfare state. And all these parasites, all these, what did they call it? They called them welfare queens in the 80s. All the women who had like chinchilla fur coats and were driving, Bentleys.
Wait, that's why we repealed Social Security and Medicare, right?
Hold on. I'm not done yet.
Those programs don't exist anymore.
The narrative is that I'm not done. The narrative is that all these parasites latched onto the welfare system. And so as a result, Reagan took a fire axe and slashed the social welfare system. And now we're living in an anarchic dystopia because of Reagan. I'm not done yet.
He slashed Medicare too, right?
I'm not done yet. Thank you. I'm sorry. So Bill Clinton was the person who was the moderate and the centrist who reformed welfare so it was tolerable to the average hardworking American. And now we still have Reaganite talking points, but we have a 1920s style separation in the economy where the poor are especially poor and the rich are especially rich. So I might agree with you that we need social policy that helps out families and working class folk and gets them health care and dental and all that kind of shit. But if you just say everybody gets everything and we'll just pay for it, you're not going to fucking
But
win.
wait a minute.
That's
wait
what
a minute.
Hutch and I have been saying for 20 minutes
Reagan,
now.
But didn't Reagan, what didn't Reagan tell
No,
you
that's not
really-
what the fuck I said from the South Side, you dipstick.
Didn't Reagan use a really reductive lie to sell those welfare cuts?
No shit. Aren't you guys getting your shit kicked in by somebody who uses reductive lies every single day?
Well, but Counter, again, what we've been saying this whole time is that the framing of these policies matters, right? So I'm not saying that Democrats, again, shouldn't at some point, I think one of my biggest criticisms for Cori Bush, for example, even though I loved her as her personal story and everything was very inspirational, she did have a very difficult time explaining progressive policies in a way that was sensible to most people, right? Now, every single one of the universal public systems that we have, even in this country, right, like public schools and stuff like that, that was a fight and you had to convince people and, people eventually came on board with them. And so we have to engage in a similar level of leadership and rhetoric as well if we want these systems, again, to be politically insulated from cuts in the future. I think that that's what's really, really important to think about. Again, right, if we look at the examples of even the Reagan neoliberal turn, what were the types of programs that he significantly cut back and scaled down? Same thing with Bill Clinton. It was it wasn't Medicare and it wasn't Social Security, right? These more universal programs, right? It was these means tested things like food stamps and Medicaid and, TANF and stuff like that, right? I mean,
do
that's
you know why the
point,
parasite
basically.
narrative doesn't work for Social Security and Medicare?
Because everyone pays into it and qualifies for it, right? So
Do you think that's
everyone
why?
is affected for it. Yes, because it's
No,
a
it's because
everyone
old
is
people. It's because it's old people, and nobody likes seeing old people eat cat food.
Well,
And
I
also,
don't think
most
people like
old
seeing
people
children eat cat
worked
food
when
either,
they
Connor.
were younger. Most old people worked when they were younger, and so as a result, it feels like we are honoring our elders by providing them with health care and Medicare. Whereas with Medicaid, hold on, I'm talking about optics. I'm not talking about policy. When it comes
What we've
to
been talking about,
Medicaid,
Connor.
and
God
when
damn
it
it.
comes to TANF and all that kind of stuff, these are people who have a skill issue competing in the capitalist market. I'm not saying that's true. I'm saying that's the optics, right?
Yeah, well, Connor,
when you
we
say
went on-
we just need to
but
give
look around the world,
poor
Connor. Come
people
on, come on.
everything,
Give
it's
it
bad
Connor some credit.
optics.
When you look across the world, right, and when you look at these kind of universal programs, for example, in the United Kingdom, they're really popular, and they don't get and they're the third rail of politics in the UK and the national healthcare system that they have, which is universal healthcare.
They're
Same
also
thing in
used
Canada.
to a nanny state through a century of history.
Well, counterpoints. Okay, now you're making an empirical argument, not a political argument. I was just going to say that, look, obviously Democrats need to come out and say, and the same argument that I made with you and Tim Pool, which, it didn't seem like there was a lot of direct attacks on these groups of people when I pointed it out, that, look, the groups of people that are actually advantaged by the welfare state are groups of non-workers, people like children, the disabled, the elderly, caregivers, people like that. Democrats do need to come out and make that argument. I do agree that we have a problem where we think of welfare as programs that only support poor people, when really they're programs that disproportionately and essentially primarily support people who generally struggle to access the market for labor, people who can't work and don't work. So that framing is very, very important. You have to frame these things as sympathetic, or you have to frame it as sort of an enemy type thing. Republicans will say immigrants are the reasons your houses are expensive. They do that because it's a thing that can, hopefully frame away the actual problems with our housing market and blame immigrants. Democrats need to say, look, I think that, and similarly to Bernie's rhetoric, right? Like, I think that there's these vulnerable groups of people and we need to support them because that's the moral thing to do. And then,
but that's already happening. You're saying that Democrats need to come out and say that. We have Democrats that are coming out and saying that, and then we have a wing of the party that's more favored towards means tested. Right now, the means tested seem to be more popular with voters. There's nothing stopping Democrats from pitching these programs and running on these programs. And then we have primaries, and then the voters decide what direction the party goes.
Obviously, there's a democratic process, Hutch. I mean, I'm not saying we should have some sort of intra-party elite, decide, progressive intra-party committee deciding who the nominee is. Obviously, voters can decide for whatever reason they won. But I think that what you and Connor and, just consistently what we underestimate here is the power of the bully pulpit amongst your base, right? That if we can get a fucking presidential candidate who's actually willing to say these things very, very consistently and eschew away a lot of the traditional rhetoric.
We did with Bernie. We did in 2016 and 2020, bro.
He had
what? I
lost
agree.
to the
You
fucking
have to,
normie.
Yeah, no, obviously.
And by the way, chat,
no
I can
shit.
fucking see you. You're talking shit about me brushing my beard. You know why I'm brushing my beard? Because I have the best beard on this fucking panel. You think I can't see you? I can fucking see you.
Now,
smart
listen,
asses.
Obviously, you have to win the primary, right? And I'm not saying I don't think that these campaign policy issues are the reasons why primaries are won and lost. Obama didn't win the 2008 primary because of his campaign on the healthcare as an issue. He won because he was a generationally inspirational figure. If Obama had came out and advocated for substantially any Democratic policy that we could have imagined in the era that would have been at least, internationally sensible, let's say, I think he still wins that primary because he was such an inspirational candidate. So you have to have that, obviously, to win a primary. That's way more important than fucking what policies you run on. Yeah,
I guess it's just a coincidence that, I guess it's just a coincidence that it's always the moderate that's more charismatic, I guess.
Obama ran
you mean when
to
they
the
stole it
left
from Bernie?
of Hillary. Obama ran to the left of Hillary, and he won the primary, right? So
and he got the best.
Because he was popular and charismatic and could sell policies. Okay,
and he got the best.
Thank you.
He got the best possible form of healthcare reform that he could have possibly got. And people like you say, well, he could have done more and chose not to.
I don't say that, Hutch. Hutch, you keep putting. I never said that, Hutch.
I'm sorry, you never said that. You said that just a few minutes ago.
No, I didn't.
If only Democrats would have done these more universal programs
every single time. It's because you're fucking annoying. That's why.
That's exactly what you said. You said if only Democrats would have done more universal programs.
Again, I didn't say do. I literally said multiple times that obviously you might have to compromise in office based on what you campaigned on, depending on the makeup of your party and what they're willing to do. Obviously, that's true, Hutch. I'll say that now for the third time. But also for about the 10th time in this conversation, we're not talking about what you're actually doing in office. We're talking about what you're advocating for, right? How that might actually effectuate a change and whether or not people will vote for you. And I think it was a problem when Kamala Harris came out and said, my healthcare plan is I'm going to expand Medicare to home care for the elderly. 98% of people have no reason to give a fuck one way or another about that policy. Whereas,
what percentage of the country takes care of an elderly parent? You're saying that what was that?
I guarantee it's a small minority of people who would be affected by. We're expanding Medicare to include home care for the elderly. Okay, if we were to compare that to we're expanding Medicare to cover everyone.
Well, if you were to compare, but okay, there's someone in the chat, and Hutch, I don't know what you think about this. Do you think that the problem with the Economoy's argument is racism? That there's evidence suggesting that white people vote against their own welfare if black people benefit?
Always felt like Economoy was a little racist, but I never. Yeah, I think there's something to that.
That's true.
Bro, what are you talking? There's it's over 70% of Americans. To some degree, help take care of an elderly parent, and you're like, this would have barely impacted anybody.
Hutch, again, we're talking about how many people on Medicare actually need home care, right? This is a small minority of people in the country. To the point that Fazboy makes, it's actually the opposite, okay? What you see when you poll people and when you actually try to determine, okay, what do people feel about welfare and how does that interact with racial politics? It's actually the opposite. One of the reasons why people hate.
Oh my God. Okay, dude.
One of the reasons why. Well, Connor, if I could actually finish the sentence.
You coming at us. This is a liberal society. It's a libertarian society. Okay, it's all about individualism.
Because I didn't actually make a point, Connor. So it's hard for you to respond when the point wasn't made.
Arguments,
he's not even listening.
And Hutch
Connor, you're not even listening to him. Let him finish a fucking sentence.
Let's take care of your nan. Let's take care of your grandma. That's a good way to sell a policy.
I'm sure.
You know what is not a good way to sell a policy? Saying everybody gets it because not everybody deserves shit.
Yeah. I'm sure it'd be helpful if I actually finished my point so you know what you're responding to. To the Fazboy's point.
No, I do know. I've been listening for 20 minutes, bro.
You know, because this is a new point,
Josiah
Connor. Fazboy brought up a new thing, okay? Fazboy brought up, okay, racism, and doesn't that impact it? It's actually the opposite. What I was trying to say was that one of the reasons why people hate our current welfare system is because black people are disproportionately poor, And because all of our fucking welfare programs, for the most part, are means tested, Black people are disproportionately the beneficiaries of our welfare state. And so that's one of the reasons why racists don't like our welfare state. However, if you made it a universal program, and this, there's polling on this, there's research on this, that people aren't as racially insensitive to universal welfare programs because everyone qualifies for them equally.
Accountable, we don't have the votes. We don't have the votes in Congress.
Of course. Yeah, let's just repeat that for the 100th time, even though I agree with that. I'm just saying you have to make a case, you have to lead, right? You have to lead.
Listen, we should point out that the terms of Hutch's ceasefire did not apply to his Live and Learn co-host.
No, that's just Twitter. It's just Twitter. No, but I mean, like, I don't even disagree with you about these universal programs. You don't even have to sell me on these programs, but I'm just saying there's nothing stopping you from pitching that. If you're a candidate and you want to run for president on a universal program, great, do it. Like, that's what we do every 4 years. And it's just, I just reject this idea of like, well, the party should just, I guess, like consciously ideologically shift to the left, I guess. You're putting the cart before the horse. You got to convince people first.
I don't know what's left or right about getting rid of a means test, right? I don't know that that's a strictly ideological thing. Obviously,
you're being pedantic. Stop.
Come on.
Okay. A universal program is not to the left of a means tested program. Come on.
No, there's plenty of libertarians who advocate for a UBI over our current welfare state, and obviously they're on the right because they understand that that's actually the small government option, not the fucking means test that we do now. Connor shakes his head and would agree with that. So I don't know that that's
I was shaking my head. Somebody in chat said become more unhinged, and I gave him a thumbs up and shook my head.
Oh, sorry, I would have. Yeah, he wasn't agreeing with me then. But
but UBI is popular because effectively it's like you can spend it on what libertarians are insane. Sorry, continue.
From the South Side, if Hutch's centrist propaganda is such a winner, why do Dems keep losing? AOC will be your first
keep winning.
Wait a minute. AOC will be your first fee. Let me get this fucking thing out, and then Hutch can have his moment. Okay, if Hutch's centrist propaganda is such a winner, why do Dems keep losing? AOC will be the first female president. Deal with it, moderates.
Okay, the premise is just objectively wrong. Like moderates just generally do better than progressives, and they have for the last 4 election cycles. And tell me this, YouTube chatter, who is currently in the lead according to the polling right now, which means nothing, by the way. But like,
it means nothing. It's name recognition. But we have Gavin Newsom and AOC who are like, they're pretty left wing.
Hang on.
Why did Kamala Harris win or lose in the 2020 in the most recent election?
Hang on, it's Kamala that's consistently in the lead right now, not AOC. And then after Kamala, it's Pete Buttigieg, who seems pretty progressive, right? But like,
Why are you not even dealing with the centrist propaganda part? That was the part that made me laugh the most. You're not even. You didn't fucking engage with it.
Pragmatist is my.
What was Kyle's response, Josiah? What was Kyle's response?
Kyle said, he said, at this point, the GOP is a fascist death cult terror organization. I 100% will support the Dems over this, even if it's Joe fucking Manchin.
Yeah,
wow.
That's the radical pragmatism.
That's what Hutch wants. Hutch wants Joe Manchin as the president.
And then he said, tell Hutch to keep my fucking name out of his mouth. Just kidding.
That's what I'm saying,
so folks, can we just agree? Can we just agree that Dems are going to Dem? But I'm going to support in this primary, and this is, I guess, is the big question. I'm going to support the progressive members of the Democratic constituency because I think that's where the energy is. I think that's where the power is, and so I'm going to
including the socialist mayor or whatever the hell's going on.
Zoran Mamdani,
Zoran, I've endorsed him.
But
he's going to win off the strength of that endorsement.
Why are you shaking your head, Counterpoints?
Because I hate
your head like a little bitch.
I hate socialists.
Who cares what they call themselves? Well, you know what I hate even more? I hate corrupt ex-governors who pussyfoot around with Trump. And so I want someone who's actually going to be a fighter and not roll over, or a NIMBY, like Cuomo's a fucking NIMBY. And guess what? Zoran is abundance pilled. He's abundance pilled. He wants to, increase housing stock. He's abundance
but is he co-opting that verbiage, or does he actually have abundance policy?
He has abundance policy.
He does have policy.
So keep your mouth shut. I don't want to vote for a fucking NIMBY like Cuomo, corrupt fucking loser motherfucker who's gonna just give what?
Did you see that Bloomberg, by the way? Bloomberg did that fucking post. He's like, today I exercised my democratic right to vote, and though there are no easy choices in this election, he voted for Andrew Cuomo because of course he did. Yeah.
Oh, you know what,
Fucking
Hutch? You
Cuomo.
need to be dunking on this chat in like 2 or 3 weeks or whatever. Whenever like the winner gets announced, if Cuomo the rapist gets picked over Zoran the socialist, you just need to be
He will,
dunking
for the
in this
record.
chat.
He
You need
will
to
win.
just sprint in circles with an American flag behind you.
I'm not rooting for Cuomo. I would vote for Zoran. I would vote for Zoran. I would vote for Mamdani if I lived in New York. I
Wait,
would not
two-
support Cuomo.
two
But if
things.
he lost the primary, I would vote for Cuomo.
2 things.
Yeah.
Number 1, did you say Zorro? And number 2,
Yeah.
No,
Zoran.
he didn't.
He did. He
No,
did.
Zoltan.
No, he didn't. He
And
did
then,
not.
and then number
He did
2,
not. I fight for
actually.
Hutch.
Hutch, I love Hutch.
Zoltan.
I love how fucking outraged he was. Like, hey, I'm not the fucking Cuomo guy here, you piece of shit.
I would not support him. But
Hutch
if
is
he
like, for the record.
But I'm just talking about radical pragmatism. So, like, if Mamdani loses the primary, I
Hutch,
would vote
I have a
for Cuomo,
question.
you know?
You would agree though that if Cuomo wins the primary, that it has literally nothing to do with the platforms of either candidate.
No, I don't
What?
agree with that at all. You don't think it has anything to do with policy?
I think
This is
okay,
purely
it has
vibe.
like 1% of the reason to do with it. The reason why Cuomo, I mean, again, we just have to think like Cuomo's barely run a campaign until the last couple of weeks. Okay, he was polling consistently far beyond other candidates before he started actually running and releasing substantial platform planks. So like, why is he polling ahead if it has to do with policy? It's just name recognition, right? I mean, I don't know. Like, I don't think people actually vote to a significant degree based on policy. My argument with regards to the universal programs
Isn't that what Connor said? There you go, Connor. We've salute. Yeah.
No,
No, I know you agree.
Oh, I'll accept
No,
your
I'm not
concession.
saying that's a contradiction. I'm just saying we've actually closed the loop on this. We ended up right back where Connor started.
But I don't think people voted for Trump because they're like, oh, like I have sophisticated, sensible, policy-based reasons for voting for Trump. Like, I think a lot of it is vibes. A lot of it was our macro environment, inflation. People were generally angry at the Democrats, right? There was perceptions of problems at the border, right? And it's clear that, Trump didn't have substantial policies in that regard either. But it's these perceptions that matter a lot more than actually what someone's platform is. I was making a political economy argument. What do we disagree with then? You're saying that,
I know.
Cuomo wins because of his platform? Like, I don't.
You're saying it basically has nothing to do with policy, but like, for example, when we look at when the American voters told pollsters, like 70% of them said that they perceive the Democratic Party to be too left wing.
They don't know shit.
Maybe I
That's
could
vibes, Hutch.
Maybe I could. Okay, well, let me illustrate the point a different way. Do you guys think that AOC would have done better or worse than Kamala?
Better 100%.
Better
You guys are
100%.
fucking
100%. Wait, there's evidence.
Better 100%.
No,
There's
there's
literal
a
evidence.
Hold on. There's a precinct in AOC's district, and I've talked about this.
Boy, this is effectively the bullying Hutch show. You need to take a break.
No, it's not. You guys bullied him for like 10 hours.
I could stand up for myself.
I'm feeding Vanguard all my talking points. No, but like I'm just saying that there was literally a precinct in AOC's district where we could experimentally test this. It was plus 25 for AOC, plus 5 for Trump. The same group of people. So I do think
a single part of a single district that she serves in. Who cares?
She would have done better.
Politics.
She would have been able to distinguish herself from Biden, and that's what Kamala got tagged with.
You guys are both fucking.
No,
Are you
you
serious?
guys think that Kamala lost because she got tagged with Biden's normal?
Yes,
That's a huge part of it. Yeah,
Bullshit.
she was seen as the
No,
incumbent.
bullshit.
No.
Yes,
She was seen.
Yes,
bullshit.
that's 100% true.
Bullshit. You invited me on this show. I'm saying bullshit until you shut up. No, they replayed her primary election tapes from 2008.
No way! No fucking way!
Do you know how many moderates you lost because they took her fucking BLM?
She was standing next to Liz Cheney.
Are you
shitting me?
Connor, are you telling me?
Moderate campaign.
Are you telling me you think? Wait. You think that Kamala is they them and President Trump is for you? You think that ad was outcome determinative?
He literally does.
Outcome determinative, but I think
So you think Kamala Harris lost the moderates when she stood next to Liz Cheney?
Absolutely hurt.
Kamala Harris stood next to Liz Cheney, and you're thinking that she lost the moderates because
it made her look like a hypocritical waffler who would do anything for power.
Dude,
yes,
you're so full of shit. No. The reason she lost.
You guys are in a hush box and you don't know what you're talking talking about because you all
reason
jerk
she
each other off
lost,
too much.
the reason she lost was the cost of living and because she was associated with Joe Biden. AOC actually has
Okay.
aura. AOC has aura, and she
70%.
would have done better.
No. I want latitude. I've been listening to Econo Boy for 30 minutes, okay? 70% of the reason why she lost is because of an anemic economic recovery. That's
You're
easily
just making
70%
this
of
up.
it.
You're
Shut
making
up.
this up.
Shut up. Shut up.
This is from
that was
your
like the first
fucking
time.
polling.
Shut up. I don't want to hear you. Shut up. So 70% of it is an anemic economic recovery. That's 70% of it. Okay? A healthy chunk of that remaining 30% is the fact that they were playing her 2019 tapes and she sounded like an uber progressive. Then they were
Bullshit.
looking at what she was saying in 2024, fucking coming up to the election.
Bullshit.
And
Why
none
are you
of it
saying bullshit?
fucking
Hold on,
matched.
hang on. Hang
None
on.
of
Why are you
it
saying bullshit? Crystal Ball
She
said the
looked
same
like a
thing.
lying,
She said the same
hypocritical
thing.
bullshit.
Am I so now because I have a friendly relationship with Crystal Ball and with Kyle Kalinske, now I have to accept whatever Crystal Ball says is
But
gospel?
you didn't say bullshit at the time. Like you didn't disagree with her at the
I
time.
didn't hear Crystal Ball say that it was because of her past positions, and to the extent that it had to do more with the identity politics stuff. Who cares? It's because Kamala Harris was less charismatic. AOC's more charismatic. That Kamala Harris wasn't able to distinguish herself from the Biden presidency, and that's it. And AOC would have performed better with people who actually care.
Donald Trump.
What do you mean bullshit?
Well, wait a minute. Well, also, Connor, to your point, okay, to the extent that people viewed Kamala as inauthentic, AOC doesn't have that issue.
Sure.
This is
And
an
she's hot.
unfalsifiable. This is an unfalsifiable theory.
Someone
There's
asked
We're
it.
gonna find
You
out in
asked it.
2028.
there's no actual evidence for
We're
what
gonna
you guys
find
are
out in
suggesting.
2028,
There's none
baby.
whatsoever.
We're gonna find
This is
out.
completely
Yeah, we'll
unfalsifiable
find out,
theory.
bro.
We'll find out in 2028.
Wait, so
I-
I'm
I-
gonna
I
ask you
would put money down right now.
Hutch, I'm
Hey,
gonna ask
you-
you a question then. I'm gonna ask
Listen.
you a question. If the choice were between right now Kamala Harris and AOC, who would you pick to be the nominee in 2028?
Oh, Kamala Harris.
Wait. Who would he
Wild.
prefer, or
Wild.
who is he betting on?
Who would
wait,
you
wait, wait.
pick? No, who would you pick? Who would you want to be the
Win.
nominee?
I would want Kamala because I think she would have a way better chance than AOC.
Okay.
For the record.
So we will never learn from our mistakes. We will
do
never
you mean we
ever
will never
learn
le-
from our mistakes.
You're
There's
voting
no
for
we.
Zoltan
There's no
in
we.
the
It's a big-
upcoming election, and you're going to lose.
Zoltan,
What do you mean?
Zoltan.
Okay, wait. I
Zoltan.
got a better one. I got a better one. AOC or Joe Manchin, Hutch, if you had to
AOC.
choose.
I would pick AOC.
Okay. All right. Some progress
Wait,
there.
why?
There's
Wait, why would you
limitations,
pick
okay, but like, listen, I think you guys, I like AOC, and I think she has to cook a lot longer. I think this theory that she would have done better with Kamala than Kamala is based on nothing whatsoever.
Bernie would have won. Bernie
I
would
have
have won in
direct evidence,
2016. He would have won in 2020.
Then
He
why
would have won in
didn't he?
2024.
AOC would have run a very different campaign. The
They
super
stole
chat
it from him. They
I
stole
think it would have been more about motivating the base, and she would have been seen as a more genuine person running the platform. That Trump is a fascist, and then there
Yup.
was one other
Fox
super
News
chat.
would have done 24/7 full court press.
Like
She's a
they
fucking
didn't do that for
socialist, and
Kamala and
it
Biden.
would have gotten through to a lot of the
That's
people.
priced in. It's priced in.
Every
Yeah, but, I
single intellectual centrist swing voter dipshit shared her 2020 primary stuff. I've had multiple debates about her gun buyback comments, plus one to Hutch and Counterpoints.
Dude, who cares who you debate? Your debates aren't representative samples of polling shit. They
They
hated
are
it
when
because-
you have to run to
Oh my,
moderates
they
during
are.
every
So,
general
all right,
election.
counterpoints,
Dude,
your
don't
debates
make me
are
say the
representative.
R slur. You're being
Dude,
R slurred right now.
I'm being
I can't
R-slurred.
believe
Don't be a
that you got
pussy.
to vote
Actually
for
say what you want to
Zoltan.
say.
No,
Say what you wanna
hey.
say. Don't be a
No,
pussy.
fuck you. Fuck both of you.
Hey,
Don't
About
drop
how
that word.
He's disconnected from reality.
You're
That's
disconnected from
crazy.
reality. Do you think Bernie would have won in 2016?
Absolutely not.
Nope.
Oh my God, you guys
Nope.
are
Wait,
cooked,
but
completely
Hutch,
cooked.
then there's no, because
No,
there was actual
you're lying to
polling.
yourself.
No, because
You're lying to yourself
Hutch,
about the world.
Hutch, there was actual polling evidence that showed that Bernie pulled slightly ahead of Hillary.
You're
And by the way, slightly
deluding
ahead-
yourself. He never faced the scrutiny of being the
Okay,
candidate.
Hutch,
They had
Oh my
so much
God.
Oppo research. Listen to me. They had so much Oppo research.
Hillary
that they
was the
would-
optimal candidate. We should run
that
Hillary in
they would-
2028.
That they would have deployed, and it would have. They would have had him fucking like what did they like writing? Taking like a honeymoon in Soviet Russia and shit.
Hutch,
Like they
Hutch.
would have
Hutch,
annihilated him.
The opposition research on Trump was and continues to be unbelievable.
That's
and
a
he's
different set
still-
of standards. It's a different. It's
What?
a totally different set.
What?
of
No, you're
Giga
saying
snaps,
what?
bro.
What do you mean what?
What?
You already agree with me. You
Yeah,
know
you
you
guys are
agree with me.
goofy.
Stop.
What do you mean
The
I agree
idea
with you?
that
What-
There's a double standard when it comes to the expectations for what kind of candidate Trump is and what kind of
Josiah talks
candidate the
about it on his
Democratic
show all the time.
nominee should be.
There is sadly a double
Okay,
standard that
but-
drives me.
That's what I'm speaking to.
That
He is a
standard
wild
is-
card. He's a fucking complete
You
joker.
guys are cucks. You guys are gonna nominate some loser.
There's
and
no
the
No,
winner will
evidence.
you
lose
guys are
I-
going
again.
to
what do you
nominate
mean,
a
you
socialist,
guys?
and you're going to lose for the 50th time, and then you're going to do Pikachu face.
When
We're
have
not
we
gonna
ever
nominate a
had a
socialist.
fucking?
It's not gonna happen.
Oh my
It's
god! When
not-
have we
it
ever
is not
had?
gonna
let,
happen.
let me know when Zoltan wins, and I'll think about it.
That's offensive. That's anti-Muslim bigotry right there.
No,
Admit
it's
it.
not. It's a
It
reference
is.
from a movie.
You wouldn't do that to a Jewish American.
Yeah, I would.
You wouldn't do it.
I don't know. Sanders
Name
team?
one Jewish American you hate.
Well, hate is kind of a strong word. One Jewish American I hate. Harvey Weinstein's easy. Yeah.
So
The rapist?
you assume he's a rapist? That he's Jewish?
No. Just because he's been convicted of rape.
Why are you doing this shit? What is
I'm
what is
sorry. I'm just
wrong
trying-
with you
I'm
two?
trying to trap him. All right, he's
Yeah.
trying to trap me. I'm trying to trap him.
Okay.
Wait, can we talk about the war, guys?
No,
Are
we
we
can't.
here
Like
about
we've
the
got.
war?
I've got
You will do
two.
anything except criticize Israel, Josiah. That's what
I've
we're
got
at.
2 fucking minutes left because we spent all of our time
Wait,
on
2
this
minutes
shit.
left.
Oh,
8:30.
what? Econo Boy talked about
You said
policy for
10.
too long and didn't make it sexy?
I said we can't go until 10. You son of a bitch! I
Wait,
said we
you-
can't.
So basically, you will always run the clock out instead of criticizing Israel. That's what I'm hearing, Josiah.
What are you
That's
talking
what I'm
about?
hearing, Josiah. That's what I'm
You
hearing.
need to clean your fucking ears, bro.
So you just let the clock play out. So we're not going to talk about the imminent fucking war in our country. And
Wait,
we just
Josiah, why
we
do we
played
have
out the
two
same
minutes
exact
left?
conversation we have on every week
So-
about the left versus Democrats. We just did
I
the
wasn't the
exact
one who
same
started
conversation.
this, you piece of shit. You all
You're
ate up the
closest
time.
thing to a moderator we have. We need to talk about the war for the next 5 minutes.
Look,
I
Josiah,
agree.
Okay, hold on.
Let's
hold
talk
on,
about the hot
Josiah,
war.
What's happening in 2 minutes?
Oh, I'm leaving in 2 minutes. I've got to leave in 2
Oh,
minutes.
but you can stay, right? But we can stay.
Oh yeah, sure.
Okay.
I've got 2 minutes left.
Wait, who's going to end the stream though? It's just going to keep going.
Who gets to
when
end the
you're gone.
stream?
We'll figure that
Can
out.
we?
Okay.
Can't he just?
Yeah.
He can just jump back on and end it real quick
Yeah.
in 30 minutes or whatever.
So yeah, you go ahead. So let's talk about. the
We'll
hot war.
criticize Israel when you're gone.
Yeah.
You can
Just
criticize-
don't worry. You won't be accused of being critical of Israel. It won't be.
Matter of fact, you
attributed
got
to
7 minutes to criticize Israel. Go.
Let's do it right now. So let's talk about this hot war. What do you think is going to be the end result of this? My understanding is that Israel has the upper hand in respect to the barrages, that Iran's counteroffensives have not been particularly effective, and there's still no credible evidence that Iran was on the cusp of nuclear weaponry. So,
So hold on. Somebody's going to have to correct me. They have, like, correct me if I'm wrong. In order to have a civilian nuclear program, I think you need 5% enriched uranium. I think the IAEA came back and they said they had like radiological evidence that points to the fact that Iran, whatever, has like 60% enriched uranium, which would point to the fact that they're enriching it to get on the cusp of a nuclear arms program.
for negotiations to get a deal like they had under Obama.
Okay.
Not necessarily to have
hold
Obama
on,
use
hold on.
it.
Hold on. So if they have a civilian rocketry and space program, and they have a civilian nuclear program that enriches uranium up to the point that they can weaponize it, don't they effectively have a ballistic nuclear missile program?
No, I don't think that they have an effective weapons program. I think that's very different. I don't have the specific domain expertise to know in which ways those things are disentangled from each other. But my understanding that is from the intelligence community's assessment and from the IAEA that there is no evidence that they have a weapons program. And I view those things, I'm not an expert in nuclear warfare, but I understand those things to be categorically different.
Yeah.
Now I agree. The
Wait a minute. I'm
enrichment levels
sorry.
are- Yeah.
I'm being gaslit by chat. I knew I saw this somewhere. So Rafael Grossi, the IAEA head, quote, "We did not have any proof of Iran building a nuclear weapon." Quote, "We did not have any proof of a systematic effort to move to a nuclear weapon." So, yeah, I saw, as far as I'm aware, there is no evidence that they were on the cusp of nuclear weaponry.
It's all inferred, right? So like Connor
Yeah.
said, there's evidence. I believe there is evidence that they had this like enhanced ability to enrich uranium, and obviously to Counterpoints' point, they have weapons systems, right? So in like an inferred sense, you could say, well, they're getting closer to the theoretical capability of a nuclear weapon, but I don't know. It does. I mean, I think Tulsi Gabbard came out and said, look, we don't have evidence of this, and the IAEA said substantially the same thing. And so it's just how do you parse the incomplete information that we all have? We obviously don't have complete intelligence on this. Like, do we just trust what Trump is saying? I mean, that's a very hard
Well,
thing to do.
No, and
So
especially because they were.
we should make this
What do you
clear,
mean?
though. We should make this clear that a civilian program only requires 3 to 5% enrichment, whereas a nuclear weapon, based off of a cursory research, you need like 90%, and so they're at 60.
That's why we had this Obama nuclear deal to keep enrichment at like 3%, and
Trump blew
ripped
it up because he's an idiot. I agree.
And so at this point, it's been the intelligence community's assessment that they do not have an intention to have a weapons program. They don't have a present intention to create a weapon. And this seems to be
then why do they have
posturing to
60%
negotiate
enriched uranium?
Because they want to come to a deal, because they're afraid of, what are they afraid of? Ending up like Gaddafi, ending up like Saddam Hussein, and ending up like Bashar al-Assad, and being attacked by Israel and America. And oh wait, we're about to do that. That's why they're doing it, is to protect themselves.
Aren't you putting the cart before the horse, where effectively if they have a 60% enriched nuclear bomb, that would point to them developing a bomb and therefore deserving of some level of preeminent,
it's also consistent with what I just said, that
bombing?
That they want to have this kind of borderline ambiguous status to get to negotiations to guarantee their security, and to be able to have a deal and to normalize. That's what they want to do. That's why they signed the initial agreement, and that's why it was so stupid for us to pull out of that agreement. And in general, I think that I trust in this conflict of all the parties. Why would you trust Trump? Why would you trust Netanyahu, who has been saying for years and years, oh my God, they're about to have it. Oh my God, they're about to have it. Oh my God, Iraq's about to have it in 2002.
No, this pisses me off because you're not using
whatsoever.
Your thinking cap. You're not using your thinking cap. You
How
have a
am I
cap
not
on, you're
using my
not
thinking
using
cap?
it.
I'm using it. I'm using it.
Do you think that Israel has sat on its hands for the past 30 years and just said they're going to have it, they're going to have it, they're going to have it? Or do you think they took proactive measures in order to prevent Iran from having a bomb? Like, I don't know, assassinating half a dozen nuclear scientists within the past decade, or screwing up their centrifuges in the 2010s. I'm pretty sure that they have been actively trying to destroy Iran's nuclear program. So pretending that they're crying wolf is bullshit.
Well, no. If they were actually interested in preventing Iran from having a nuclear weapon, they wouldn't have blown up the Iran nuclear deal. But they did do that, and the AIPAC did lobby to scuttle that. By the way, because what they want is regime change. That's obviously what they want.
You have to be a regime change.
I do want the regime to change.
American military forces.
I do want, but I want it to be authentic. I don't want to be installed by, and you don't want it either, by Americans or outsiders, because we know it doesn't work. We've tried it before, and that's why we have this thing called diplomacy, and that's what Israel. If you believe it, right? There's two possible scenarios. Either Trump knew that this negotiating strategy was a fugazi from the start. It was a fluke from the start. It was all a ruse from the start, in which case we have no credibility and no one should listen to America. Or he didn't know, and Israel unilaterally scuttled the negotiations that Trump had initiated on good faith. And those are horrible scenarios. And they tell you that Trump either thought that there was a possibility for a deal, in which case, why aren't we doing a deal? Or B, you can't ever trust America's word when they say they're going to go into negotiations, in which case a deal is impossible anyway, because no one's going to trust our word. And that's a horrible state of affairs.
Super chat. Even if they are close, this will never game out. Aggression will make the desire of small nations to have them accelerate, especially since Russia, Ukraine.
Yeah.
Doobie
the other
said,
option. Sorry, go ahead.
Well, you can respond as soon as I get done with these. In 2007, there was an NIE report that said the nuclear weapons program, which ended in 2003, hadn't even mastered the technology needed to build a nuclear warhead. This was reiterated by the administration in 2011.
Yeah, and Doobie, there's another person in chat who's saying that effectively the IAEA came out and said that they could enrich 60% enriched uranium to 90% within 3 weeks. So who the fuck am I supposed to believe?
That's not the same as having a nuclear weapons program. That's not the same. You still need to deliver it. You still need to deliver that payload, and you still need to create a nuclear weapon. It's not the same as having
they have a civilian rocketry program. You think the civilian rocketry program can't be converted to ballistic missiles?
Don't they have to miniaturize?
I'm literally watching ballistic missiles hit like Tel Aviv right now. What the fuck are you talking about?
Yeah, I don't think it's 1-to-1. I'm not a nuclear scientist, and so I can give you the specifics. But my understanding of that is there are significant barriers, and we now have leaks. We now have leaks of U.S. intel. We now have leaks of U.S. intel. We now have leaks of U.S. intel saying that they're years away from being able to actually deliver a nuclear payload. That's what the U.S. intelligence community is saying. And why should we disagree with them? Why do we trust Netanyahu
listen, I'm not
over
bloodthirsty to go to war with Iraq, or excuse me,
so
Iran.
Would you support America launching these bombing strikes over the nuclear bases?
Basically, so talk about ideal world. Like I will deal with it if it happens or whatever. But effectively,
that's
like,
not what I
think
fucking
Congress,
asked whether you'll deal with it. I assume you'll deal with it. I'll deal with it too.
Congress, thank you, Pisco. I think that Congress has allowed the executive branch to get way too ballsy with military intervention, and they need to reassert their authority over military conflict.
I totally agree with that. I think that's base. I talked earlier to a caller today who was like, I don't care if it's unconstitutional for President Trump to do this. It's so important that it's okay that Trump violate the law and usurp Congress's authority to declare war. And in this case, we're not talking about like a minor skirmish. We're not talking about going up and picking, Osama bin Laden from Pakistan. We're not talking about one of these things. This is like in a very clear case of an attack on a sovereign state in a major escalatory way. It would be no different than going and attacking Pearl Harbor and being like, oh, that's not a war. Like,
and that's the other thing. Somebody would have to go through the AUMFs, the authorization for the uses of military force. But as far as I know, like the AUMF for the war on terror, I think it was like relegated to like Al Qaeda and shit. Like, I'm sure we have some kind of pretext to like take out terrorists in some kind of circumstances. But do we have the authority to like unilaterally bomb without congressional authority?
I totally agree with you. I think that's bullshit. And the very least, what you can say about Bush actually won the public debate to go to these wars. He actually went to Congress and sought authorization and actually had public support to do these wars.
That's why Pisco backed the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan. He's still to this day.
Those wars anyway. Yeah. Fuck those wars anyway. I don't care if the majority say that they approve these strikes. I'm still against them. But at the bare minimum, Bush did that. Trump isn't going to do that. And everyone knows that Trump isn't going to do that. And so we should all be against this kind of escalation. We should get to a deal. We should revive the Iran nuclear deal. But of course, that's not going to happen because it seems like the people in charge have bad motives and that you can't trust them. And that's the key essential element to all of this is trust.
Wow. You're calling Jews shifty now?
No,
I'm calling anti-Semitic.
I'm calling Donald Trump, last I checked,
Pisco. That's super
was not a Jew.
So Counterpoints, why did the late Mir Dagan, a former head of Mossad, not agree with you that this issue about Iran being a threat?
When did Mir Dagan last post something? Like, you're going to have to give me a date. You can't just tell me, Mir Dagan, said that I'm wrong. I don't know who the fuck Mir Dagan is or when.
Doobie, Iran agreed to give up the stockpile of material enriched beyond civilian use in April. Also agreed to robust inspections, a commitment to never build a nuclear weapon, etc., in exchange for the lifting of sanctions. Sure sounds like the JCPOA there.
Yeah. Literally, it's the Iran deal redone by Trump.
Yeah, we should accept that deal. But the truth is, the red line of the Trump administration has been no enrichment whatsoever. That's what they've said. That the red line is no enrichment whatsoever. That cannot be. That's a non-starter. And you can't even have nuclear energy. That is a non-starter. Why would Iran ever accept that? That's a deal that that they're going to reject. But ultimately, we have to pretend that negotiation is impossible, and then we should just do whatever Israel says, and we should trust Israel and all their security determinations. I think that's ridiculous.
If Israel were actually worried about nuclear weapons, why would they assassinate Iran's chief negotiator in the first strike? The attacks were clearly meant to undermine a long-lasting deal.
100%.
I mean, I think Doobie is very skeptical of the Israelis and far too charitable to the Iranians, but that's okay. That's fine. I can be skeptical of everybody. And
wait a minute. Wait a minute. On that real quick. You agree that whatever else, Netanyahu did not want a deal to be reached between the Trump administration and the Ayatollah, right?
He must agree with that.
Yeah. I think Israel, they're not interested in peace at this juncture.
Well, right, but so then you don't disagree with Doobie's point there, right? Doobie's point is clearly if Israel were looking for a diplomatic solution, they would have just allowed the Trump administration to continue.
But by inference, okay? Call me paranoid, call me whatever you got to call me, okay?
All right.
Paranoid
by inference, we're accusing one side of bad faith, all right?
Yes.
Now, if you actually go back to Iraq, the actual narrative what happened there is during the 1980s, we sold Iraq weapons of mass destruction, okay? Then in the 1990s, we put sanctions on them, and they partially complied with weapons inspections, and they actually signed treaties for weapons inspections. Then in the 2000s, they had violated those inspections because the UN said, yeah, they probably eliminated 90 to 95% of their stockpiles were good. And after 9/11, Bush said, 90 to 95% certainty is not good enough in a post 9/11 world. We need 100% open books inspections of Iraq shit. And then Saddam Hussein played fuck games a little bit. When asked after the war, I'm not done yet, Pisco, thank you.
You're
when
lying.
asked why Saddam Hussein, it wasn't a lie, because Saddam Hussein was specifically asked why he was playing fuck games with inspectors. He said that he didn't want to fully confirm that he didn't have totally dismantled weapons of mass destruction because he was worried about invasions from his neighbors. Yes, that's a direct quote. Why are you shaking your head?
No, because you're understating what they said. What they said is Iraq has or is pursuing weapons of mass destruction. They didn't say it as a percentage
That doesn't
chance
contradict
or
what I said.
the inspections, but you're not including the fact that they asserted that they had this desire,
You're accusing
this
me by
intent,
lies and
and that they had
omissions, but
weapons of
these
mass
are not
destruction.
countering what I said.
No, but it's a lie by omission. You're not including.
No, it's not. Because you're assuming that I'm
yeah.
trying to justify the Iraq war, and all I'm trying to say is that people can sign up to deals and then they can play fuck games on the back end. That's what I'm saying. And I almost guarantee you that
no one's saying Iran's not playing fuck games.
That is Israel's perspective.
Who gives a fuck?
Iran,
They're bad faith. They're bad faith.
Iran is going to sign on to the deal, but they're not actually going to comply.
They're bad faith.
Therefore, you're effectively going to enable them to further development their capacity.
Okay, but I hate this. This is the kind of Mearsheimer shit.
That's the Israeli perspective piece.
So this is like, we're not talking about at this point. Yeah, they could have this perspective. We could take the perspective of Putin and analyze the Ukraine situation and like take the perspective of every country and do this kind of country analysis. But we're talking here now.
Iran negotiating
oh
good
my
faith. Why do
God.
they give $1 billion a year to jihadist organizations that attack?
You think I support Iran? You think I support Iran? Well, am I here
You're
to defend
saying that
everything
you're
around
willing
us?
to take them on good faith, Pisco. I don't know why the fuck you would take them on good faith if you spend $1 billion a year on supporting Hamas and Hezbollah and Islamic Jihad and all the militias in Syria.
This is absolutely wild. I mean, no,
it's not. It's actually descriptive of reality, Pisco.
The Islamic Republic.
Facts to you.
I condemn the Islamic Republic. The question is, who's more good faith on these negotiations? And I'm going to ask that of you, Connor. Who's more good faith, Iran or Donald Trump and Israel in these negotiations?
Donald Trump can, all three members can be a piece of shit, and this can still be a fucking issue.
Who's operating in with respect to these negotiations? Who's operating more in good faith? Trump and
what if all
Israel,
three operators are operating in bad faith?
I'm asking in relative terms. It's a relative question, dipshit.
No, I'm not going to answer your relative terms because even
why not? Yeah, because you're a bitch. Because you're a bitch.
Let's say somehow, no, Pisco, your question is fucking stupid. By the way.
Okay.
So let's say that there is 33% bad faith across the board, but the Iranians are negotiating at 32% good faith.
Oh my
God! And
God.
I say, relatively speaking, the Iranians are negotiating in more good faith. What the fuck does that prove?
But it's not. It's not a difference of. It's not a difference of inches. It's actually a significant difference, and the significant difference is Iran actually wants a deal. The difference is this: Iran wants a deal, Israel does not. That's the difference. That's the difference.
You presume they want a deal, and you presume that they don't want a weapon, and that they're not going to work it on the background. You have no idea what they're doing.
We just agreed Israel doesn't want a deal, right? Israel wants regime change. Can we agree?
Yeah, obviously, based off of their actions, I don't think they want a deal. That doesn't mean shit about Iran.
Okay, so for Iran, you think Iran is not willing to accept a deal, even though they accepted one with Obama and they were negotiating with Trump?
It's like you're being obtuse. It's almost like you pretend to be obtuse whenever we had a fucking conversation, Pisco.
Okay.
What I said is that Iran can accept a deal and then they can fail to comply with that deal while they're doing shady shit on the back end, and I almost guarantee you that's Israel's line of action.
But they complied. They complied.
So do you think that Iran,
but they were in
good faith, will stop funding organizations that attack Israel to the tune of $1 billion a year?
So there's this term that George H.W. Bush used. Now I'm forgetting the term, but it's basically convert. Like you're conflating two things. You're joining two issues. The issue, the Iran nuclear deal,
100% linked. Do you think Israel doesn't see
linkage? Linkage is the term. Yeah, no, you're right. The linkage term. So. The Iran nuclear deal was just about getting enrichment levels down and making sure that they didn't have a nuclear weapon. It didn't deal with all issues related to Iran. The scope of the Iran nuclear deal was limited to them getting a nuclear weapon. But you're trying to say, well,
fuck yourself.
So you're trying to say that the Iran deal should have to include every bad misconduct that Iran does, including their funding of proxies, including their ballistic missiles program.
Why would Israel trust somebody who spends $1 billion a year to destroy their state?
I'm not telling you that Israel should trust them generally. I'm not. And you're,
why would they
again,
trust them specifically?
You're changing the question. The question is
no,
who is acting in good faith to pursue a deal? Who is trying to pursue a deal actually? And Israel's not trying to pursue a deal. Israel's trying to undermine a deal. Israel's trying to destroy the possibility of there being a deal.
Why does that statement make you say that Iran is incapable of deception?
I'm not saying. Wait, when did I, dude? You want to talk about putting words in people's mouths? I never said that.
Pisco, how do you like it? Exactly. Clip that.
What
Pisco.
a fucking straw man! You should
No,
actually stand up and apologize.
Pisco,
You should
asked
stand
me
up
earlier in the conversation.
and apologize.
He was negotiating in more good faith, so I could say Iran, and then you could be like, "Well, why don't you support a deal?" Which is obviously an idiotic point.
No. What I hate is this.
And I've already said multiple times that Israel cannot want the deal because they don't think that it will be honored.
So you think no one wants a deal? No one wants a deal then. No one actually wants a deal. No one actually wants a deal. No one actually wants a deal.
Trump might want a deal because it would be easier.
Trump wants a deal after what he just did in the last week. It looks like Trump wants a deal.
Trump will probably change his mind in the next 48 hours over whether or not he wants a deal.
Okay,
or
then
doesn't
he can't be trusted.
This is why I don't like him as a president.
Okay. Then he might as well. He's as good as someone who can't be trusted because if he is like good faith, but he's just so schizophrenic that he has no like point of view. He's such an old piece of shit that he can change his mind. And I think this is actually probably closer to reality. So I'm not even saying I disagree with you, but like he will talk to someone and he'll completely change his perspective on an issue.
Yes,
then we have a fucking vegetable in charge of the administration right now,
Dude,
and it might as well be that it's bad.
I know you guys. Okay, you guys are showing me the chat. You didn't need to show me the chat. Chat, you were so
we do this every single time.
Hold on,
this is not specific to you. Shut the fuck up.
So, all right. So, chat, you think that because I'm making an argument that Iran might not be negotiating in good faith, which is why Israel doesn't want to sign a deal, that I want to invade Iran? Do you have 80 IQ?
Okay, so we agree. So
a couple of things. Wait a minute. So a couple of things real quick. Now I'm going to step in. So we always show chat in every Live and Learn episode. It's always displayed on the screen. So it's not targeted to you.
Yeah, you did make that implication. You did that implication. You did do it.
All right. So number one. Number two, I believe the reporting around the JCPOA was that Iran was in compliance until Trump withdrew from the JCPOA in 2015 or 2018. So that was 3 years roughly of compliance. I suppose it's not guaranteed that Iran would have complied afterwards, but
that's compliance by a third-party group, right? Was it the UN or who?
Yeah, there were third-party investigative agencies. I believe it was an arm of the UN that would audit Iran's, uranium program, its nuclear program, make sure it was for civilian purposes, and they passed. They passed the inspection. And now, after Trump withdrew in 2018, then Iran basically said, "Fuck it. Okay, we're going to start, basically doing what we want to do with it, what we were doing prior to the JCPOA." So there's evidence that they would comply with the deal. Which is presumably why even Trump was willing to negotiate with it. Presumably, the Trump administration and even the Biden administration as well, they failed, but they were also trying to make a deal with Iran to some sort of new version of the JCPOA. So the other thing I would point out is, does Israel trust Iran? Obviously not, otherwise they wouldn't have done what they do. But do you ever really trust somebody who is a belligerent, in a situation like this? Like, that's why you make these alliances and deals in the first place, and you have third-party guarantors to ensure compliance. So I'm not sure what the issue is.
Well, yeah, you never need to negotiate with your friends. Oh, I mean, right. I guess technically you do, but primarily you need to negotiate with your enemies, right? Mm-hmm. So I agree. And then this is what frustrates me about Trump is actually Pisco and I probably have 70% alignment on outcome, but I think descriptively we're just way the fuck off.
Well, what do you want as a policy response? I think that this is insane. I think that you and I both agree that it's the Congress should take the power back, that what they should reassert their authority here. We don't agree with military strikes from U.S. personnel onto Iran. Right. I guess so. I think that we're aligned. But the thing is, the people.
Well, let me ask you: if an AUMF came back from Congress, let's say from Congress, they say in an AUMF you can do a limited strike on Iran if you believe that they have they're producing weapons grade stuff, and you can take out these nuclear sites. If an AUMF comes back, what are you saying then?
That would resolve the legal question, but it wouldn't resolve the necessity question or the trust question. So yeah, it would resolve the legal question for me, the procedural issue. And so yeah, I guess Trump would be authorized, and so I wouldn't have an objection on that front. But it would still need to be something that I think is necessary. Well, it depends, right? Like if you view this as necessary to prevent them from weaponizing, then yeah, I guess maybe you can justify. But the problem is the trust issue. You can't trust these administration. And the last thing I want to do is give Trump an actual crisis, an actual emergency in a state of war, whether it's declared by Congress or not, so that he can become more authoritarian at home and start throwing people in jail some more. I don't trust Bibi Netanyahu either. Netanyahu, who, by the way, constantly lies, time and time again. This guy is a piece of shit. And if you believe that he unilaterally undermined the peace talks that Trump was engaged in, like, holy fuck, how can we let that precedent stand? How can we let Israel have the role of just undermining American foreign policy time and time again, and just scuttling talks and making it impossible?
They're an independent nation. Actually, I'm curious about what you're saying right now. So hold on, they're sovereign.
Then
nation.
We should cut off aid.
They have I probably agree there. What do we give them? Like $3.2 billion in aid every single year with
whatever
military
billions
shit?
of years. If they're undermining our policy like that, where we're in negotiations and they kill the counterparty and we had no role in that, then why are we giving them aid?
Okay. Yep, I think that's fair.
Well, look at that. We have reached our own peace deal. Congratulations, between two hostile belligerents. Well, listen, this was a lot of fun. I bought myself an additional 15 minutes to attend this with you guys.
Connor is one of the best guests. I have a lot of fun with him.
It gets lively. It gets spicy. He's flipping off chat.
Always.
Chat's flipping him off back. He actually has quite a bit of support in chat, believe it or not. Connor, if you're not paying attention, a lot of people are shit-talking Pisco.
Yeah, you fucking terrorist simp piece of shit.
I hate terrorists. You know I do.
Okay, so hold on. Doobie, I actually have a relationship with Doobie, so I want to address him specifically. He was like, you're dead wrong on this. And then he says, Iran having it, if anything, Israel is proving that Iran needs a nuke in order to maintain its own sovereignty. So effectively what you're saying is like an authoritarian theocratic regime needs a nuke in order to be able to deter foreign aggressors. And then what you're agreeing to by proxy is a three-way Mexican standoff between a nuclear Saudi Arabia, a nuclear Iran, and a nuclear Israel. And by the way, that could be peace, because the way that we established peace between us and the Soviet Union was nuclear détente with mutually assured destruction. So we're risking the world. We're risking nuclear holocaust, but maybe that's what's required to get these people to actually finally be peaceful.
Wait. I just want to say, the people in chat being like, I'm with Connor, I'm with Pisco, I'm with Connor. I think we agree on the neither of us supports these military strikes. Agreed? Right, Counterpoints? We don't support it.
If an AUMF came down and they said that, like, actually, we think they're on the verge of arming a ballistic missile or whatever, we need to act now, and the AUMF is signed off, then at that point I would just go, okay.
And if Congress believed it, right? Congress would presumably have to believe it.
But I think you should go through Congress. Yep.
Okay. So, but under current conditions, under current authorities, you think, no, you're not in favor. So at least in terms of the short term, both Connor and I agree, no strikes. We should not be doing it.
Not unilaterally, not by Trump alone. I think that's fucking crazy.
Yeah, I guess last question. Do you all think that this could be outcome determinative for the remainder of Trump's presidency, or at least the midterms?
Yep.
Yeah, for sure.
It's super significant.
Yeah.
Iran international economy and domestic deportations, this is all going to affect midterms, 100%.
Yeah, I think so. I think especially if we see a ground conflict, if we see like chaos in the region, Trump, he had a chance at managing a crisis under COVID, and he did terribly at that. Trump's not a good manager of literally anything. And so, I mean, do we trust him to be a good steward of an actual conflict in the Middle East? A conflict substantially larger than the Iraq conflict that we had? Probably not, right? So.
Well, then two final questions. This one's going to be directed at Hutch. Hutch, I want you to play the devil's advocate as the most optimistic person that this is fuck Trump, which I believe was a case that you made earlier, that he's not in a really good state. Could you see this swinging out in a way where Trump comes out ahead? I mean, I saw this guy in chat. We don't have time to bring him on because I've got to go now in 4 minutes. I bought myself like an additional 25. But that Trump is able to basically use Israel as a cat's paw, have them, devastate Iran militarily to the point where Iran says, you know what, fuck it, we'll capitulate, unconditional surrender. And Trump says, ha, look at this. Israel and I tag teamed Iran, and we didn't have to put boots on the ground. The U.S. didn't have to directly strike Iran, and they've committed to terminating their nuclear program.
Are you asking me if you think he could use that to catapult ahead and like actually?
Yeah. Do you think that is?
I don't think so.
You don't think so?
I mean, he could. I mean, it's possible, but like, how many people? To Americans, they're just gonna. It's just really what changed for them day to day. It's just going to be about a narrative.
And that has to be tied with an economic, like a massive economic boom. If he doesn't have an economic boom, he's fucked.
Okay. All right. And then,
to be clear, I don't think that like he's irrevocably fucked right now. I said he's really vulnerable right now.
Gotcha. And then last question then is, Thomas Massey and AOC and Bernie Sanders, there's a bipartisan push for a war powers resolution to kind of rein in Trump.
It's just Massey. There's no other Republican.
There's no other Republican at all? Oh, okay. I thought I saw some other Republican sign on.
But Massey, you've seen Massey and Paul break from the Republicans multiple times and take tons of shit. I'm happy. Oh, and Ted Cruz, by the way, breaking for Trump, but against MAGA. You're actually seeing some people have some spines for the first time in their lives.
What do you mean? Trump is MAGA. I don't know what is this world in which Trump is not MAGA? What are you talking about?
He's fighting the MAGA rebels, and he's taking a ton of shit for it, which is actually good.
So real quick then, you don't think that, I think he's introducing as a privilege resolution, so I think it's like it must get a vote. Do you think it'll pass?
No.
No.
Of course not.
Nobody has any confidence that it'll pass?
No.
Democrats will vote for it, but
I don't know.
I don't know that all of them will.
I'm not sure.
Oh, really? Ah, okay.
I think I don't think that you'll get even. I'm going to go out on a limb and say probably something approaching 80 to 100 Democrats vote against it.
Do you think Jared Golden will vote against it?
No idea.
Okay.
Wait, why do you say that has to get a vote? What procedural rule?
I think it's a privilege. I think it's a it's a procedural rule. It's a privilege resolution, which means that it's guaranteed a vote. Kind of like, do you remember? Fuck, I'm blanking on it. Who was the Matt
Well, you
Gaetz?
blank real quick. I just want to say, did you see Schumer's statement? It was pathetic, and Ro Khanna called him out. Schumer was like. They asked him, like, will you support this kind of resolution? They're like, well, the Senate will take action if appropriate. That's a nothing statement.
God.
That's a non-answer.
It's complete garbage. So the Democrats are not unified here, and I would be not shocked if it fails resoundingly with only like 70 or 80 votes.
Okay, yeah, let me pull this up real quick. I knew I wasn't making it up. War powers resolutions are privileged in the House of Representatives and can be called up for debate and a floor vote after 15 calendar days without action in committee. I'm pretty sure it's guaranteed a floor vote. Maybe it's not. Maybe it is only. It doesn't require any sort of like pre-committee shit. But I was pretty certain like it could go to the floor automatically and they had to vote on it. The other thing I want to point out here real quick before I forget. Try not to laugh. This is I laughed my ass off when I saw this. I saw on Mediaite a thing about Anna Kasperi. That's funny.
She was on CNN last night.
Yeah, so listen. Yeah, I saw that. It was kind of shocking. Two things that made me laugh at this. Liberal co-host. They call her a fucking liberal co-host, Mediaite, and she's in the corner here. She's behind whoever the fuck this is. Jillian
Amy
Michaels.
Yep.
Yeah.
Adam something.
PBD's sidekick. Lindy fucking Lee gets better billing
Lindy is
than
the
Anna.
worst.
Yeah.
Anna did really well on this show, I have to say. And Straighter 8, Aaron and I reviewed it. It was absolutely insane. This guy, Adam, took all the tricks out of the book. You hate Jews. You hate Israel. You support the terrorists. You are being an emotional woman. You didn't support Trump until you hate America. Like, it was the worst. And then he threw a tampon at her. And so, like, I don't know what to say. Anna did well. It was disgusting. These people are fucking scum of the earth. The PBD people are scum of the earth. And it made me feel like a lot of...
Can I ask you something though? Because I didn't see it.
Sounds like fire content. I need to review that.
You should review that. It's super fucked up about the tampon. I'm curious though. How is her demeanor when she's on her take dealing with conservatives versus like liberals? Like, because I see a lot of contempt and hatred that she has for Democrats and liberals, and she seems much more comfortable dealing with conservatives. So did she fire back at that Adam guy?
She did fire
and
back,
the others,
and
the way she would with a progressive or with a liberal?
100%. Yeah, no,
Good.
She was very fiery. She was good. There were a couple of things where she's like wrong about, and she gives dumb arguments. Like, I think it's a dumb argument, and I'm actually curious about Connor, how you feel about this. Actually, I think I know how Connor feels about this. He probably agrees with Anna. Anna says shit like this. well, if you support the war, why don't you go fight in it? And that sounds like a very counterpoints thing to say, but I don't agree.
Oh,
I don't
fuck
agree
you.
with that sentiment. But I feel like I've heard you say shit like that.
Well, yeah, I've said shit like that, but you know who I say that to? I say that to all those fucking pussies on Twitter who are like, oh, you know, if you want to go fight in Ukraine, why don't you join the Ukrainian army? Or if you want to fight in Iran so bad, why don't you join the military? Meanwhile, half of these pussies were fucking 18 or 19 or 20 in 9/11 2001, and they didn't fucking enlist. And these are all conservatives too, by the way, who are fucking cowards. Their country got attacked in the worst attack since Pearl Harbor. They were 18 to 20. They were able-bodied, and they didn't do shit about it. So I don't want to hear from these 40-year-old fucking losers about how they didn't enlist 20 years ago.
Hodge twins?
Yeah, well, the Hodge twins actually are supposedly Marines, which actually explains a lot, by the way.
Oh my God. Okay. All right. I gotta
I'm a
call
former
it here.
Marine. Marines are stupid. That's the joke.
I gotta call it here. But listen, this was definitely fiery. Connor, thank you for coming on. Shout out your socials and everything. Where can people find you? Your latest project?
Why would they enlist? Because they're not pussies, Doobie. That's why. So Counterpoints 40K is my science fiction, science fantasy review channel. So if you like Warhammer, then go ahead and check that out. We're over 100,000 subs. It's actually getting good metrics. It's an excellent channel. I love it. Counterpoints Politics is, you can type that into your search bar. It'll just pop up with Counterpoints. We got like 6K subs right now, but I'm streaming 25 hours a week. So if you want to catch me on Tuesdays, I'm live on that channel on Tuesdays. And then Valor Media Network. It's an offshoot of Midas Touch. It's a bunch of, never Trump Republicans, Democrats, libs who all want to preserve the Republic. They're all first responders. They're all veterans, all that kind of shit. And it's dope. So type that in as well. Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, I'm live from 9:30 a.m. to 2:30 p.m. on Valor Media Network. On Tuesdays, I'm live at the same time on Counterpoints.
Got it. All right. Well, fellas, I really appreciate this. And we'll see you next Wednesday. Thank you guys so much.
Stay cool, guys.
Bye.
Bye.